and trying to find markets and opportunities for recycling.
And, you know, I just think it's worth starting by underlining that, because as I look at our whole program, which you run, you know, and I've come to look to you as our city's expert on, you know, what can be recycled, what should be banned. You know, the expansion of the organics program shows great creativity. So I just think, you know, like that's of course we want to ban products which we think are environmentally harmful. We want to recycle those which can be recycled. So I think it's worth starting there. We're not kind of in a vacuum here. It's not obviously that the Department of Sanitation is opposed to recycling. You run probably the largest municipal recycling program
and the largest
anywhere.
organics collection program in the country, California.
Okay. And I think rigid plastics is a good example. For a long time, we weren't recycling those. Technology shifted and changed. Markets moved, and now we have a very big rigid plastics program, and the rigid plastics get recycled. Sims sells them, and then those things wind up being recycled and reused.
Yes.
And if we did have a ban, presumably most of the containers, for example, that are foam would be plastic, and those would be rigid plastics, which would go into our
or hopefully
recycling
compostable
stream.
paper.
All right, even better.
Compostable paper.
Okay, all right. So I just want to underline a couple of things that I think I heard you say. I just want to make sure I really understand them. I know one challenge here is that a very high percentage of styrofoam containers don't wind up in people's homes anyway to be in the recycling stream, right? They get thrown away in street trash cans. Somebody buys something from a bodega. And
so we're in the middle of doing a waste characterization study again to find out exactly how much is in the residential side of the stream and how much is in the litter baskets. But they are takeout containers, so we do find a sizable amount of styrofoam food service in litter baskets. You know, Dunkin' Donuts is the largest chain, I think, in the city of New York, and they use styrofoam cups.
And a lot of those cups obviously wind up getting thrown into street trash cans. So even if there were a recycling program, those cups would still be in the street trash cans and wind up in landfills faster than the ones that went to Sims and eventually found their way to landfills also.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
End up in a wire basket, yes.
And presumably, if there were a ban, they would move to a compostable or recyclable
They actually,
product.
ahead of the lawsuit, they had actually already moved to a different type of cup that was not made out of polystyrene.
And there are Dunkin' Donuts, presumably, in the places that have banned
right, which is why they already
well.
had a material type that they were able to move in quickly.
Okay. I think the chair and you spoke about the difference between dirty polystyrene and clean polystyrene, but one thing that it's my understanding is that there are actually federal rules that prevent some dirty polystyrene from being used for food, you know, from being used as a source material for new food processing. Are you?
I'm not familiar with that particular federal rule.
Okay. I may ask some of the environmental experts later. It's my understanding that there are limitations on what the dirty polystyrene can be used for, which is part of the challenge in marketing it. So if you can look into that.
Yeah, I'm happy to look into it. I think that the first piece of it is that in any recycling market, you are always competing with virgin material. And the costs of collection, sorting, cleaning, processing has always so far outweighed the cost of virgin material that no one ever ends up being able to make a profit.
My sense here, and I guess I'll do some additional research as well, but you might look at this, is that in addition to all of that, it's also true that there are things you can do with clean polystyrene in terms of holding food that you're not allowed to do with at least some dirty polystyrene because of some of the harms it can cause. So, okay. I guess we'll get to this later when they testify, but I guess I didn't see it in your testimony, so I just want to ask as well. What is DART? Who is DART?
My understanding is DART is a expanded polystyrene manufacturer.
Any sense of their market share or presence in the polystyrene
I assume it's
market?
very large.
Very. I mean, according to Wikipedia, the world's largest manufacturer of foam cups and containers, producing about as much as all the competitors combined. So that's not quite a monopoly, but it's sure a very large position. You want to take a guess at what their approximate annual sales are on polystyrene?
I'm assuming that it's going to be very large.
North of $1 billion. And I guess in the lawsuit, I know there was some question about how much they would be paying to set up this system? Did you guys look at essentially how much money? I mean, obviously you can call it a one-time upfront cost, or but especially if it includes the cost of transportation and processing, even if you sort of seed it up front, it is essentially a subsidy to that program. Did you guys get any sense of?
Just to clarify, none of that money was ever coming to the city of New York. That was a private contractual relationship being made by Sims and DART. And so, the obvious ongoing challenge is, that's not actually a market. That's not actually really getting to where we need to be around ensuring that the material can actually even end up in the bale.
Right.
They say they want to buy.
This goes to my point. So I don't know if I have some numbers, but I guess I saw somewhere that that there was an estimate that it was about $23 million that they were essentially willing to pay in as subsidy into that deal.
That's probably on the right order of magnitude. I don't know if I've always looked at sort of the chunks of it, like how much is the equipment, how much is the ongoing tonnage cost, but that would be the right order of magnitude.
Okay, because I just look, there's one.
Is your point 1 billion? Is that?
Well, I mean, look, I'm open to the possibility that DART is really in good faith working to help figure out a path to recycling styrofoam. But one at least has to ask the question, if you're selling over $1 billion of styrofoam, you obviously have an interest in not having it banned, and spending $23 million in a demonstration program to give you the appearance of recyclability would be a good investment. And if it wound up sitting in warehouses or ultimately going to landfill, you wouldn't, that's not what we're looking for. So I'll ask those questions of DART, but I think they're part of our trying to understand what the best course of action is here. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Commissioner. I think we're done with the first set of questions. We're just hoping that some of your folks can stay so they can hear from testimony from DART and other folks, and also just to give the people watching at home and in the overflow rooms and here that we have over 58 people that are going to testify today. We have a third overflow room, which I hear is close to a new record. So people care about this. I don't want anyone to think that to dismiss this idea that this is not important or it's insignificant. We're talking about a Friday afternoon, and we're talking about polystyrene. People, all right, people care. So thank you for everyone that cares on both sides. I think Councilmember Cabrera and I were talking about everyone cares. So the next group is actually going to be Michael Westerfield from DART, Alan Shaw, from PRI, William Goodfellow from Exponent Inc., and Robin Cantor from Berkeley Research Group.
Maybe we can add another.
Yeah, we're going to add another chair. And for this first group, we're going to... Thank you, Commissioner. For this first group, we don't want to necessarily limit the testimony. We want to allow for a good conversation, but I will be asking that we be thoughtful with time so that everyone can speak. And thereafter this panel, we're going to have an environmental, or I guess we're going to have an opposed panel. And then thereafter, we're going to limit to 2-minute testimony for everyone else. It's the only way we get out of here before 6 o'clock. Okay? And there's people that are going to spend a long time here, so. Okay, so yeah, so I assume I don't know what order you're going to go in, but do you guys have it figured out? Do you think you can do this? All right, so wherever you want to start, whoever you want to start, please go ahead. And like I said, I'm not going to limit time here, but I just want us to be mindful of the fact that there's a lot of testimony that's going to come up, and we want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity to speak. So please, whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chairman Reynoso and committee members and council members. Appreciate your time today. My name is Michael Westerfield, but I think you already know that. I work for DART, and I'm our Director of Recycling Programs, and we're here today to support 1480, obviously. In 2013, we were invited by the Sanitation Department and the Bloomberg administration to prepare a recycling solution for New York City. And that's exactly what we did. We offered a comprehensive program that would allow New Yorkers from each borough to put foam polystyrene in their recycle bin, just like they do with their metal, glass, and plastic. It'd be the exact same bin. It would get picked up on the exact same city truck, and it would also get processed at the exact same sorting facility operated by Sims. In addition to that, we made a couple guarantees. We guaranteed a price for 5 years. Nobody's ever offered a price for 5 years, but we did that. We also guaranteed a market for a minimum of 5 years, and the city doesn't have any other offers like that either. In 2014, we presented a contract to the city sorter confirming this offer, and we also offered to cover all their costs for infrastructure, which were pretty significant. Once the sorter accumulates a container load of polystyrene, the plan would be for them to sell it to Plastic Recycling Inc., who you're going to hear from here, and they would ship the material by rail to their Indianapolis facility, where it will be reclaimed and then recycled into cores for paper rolls, picture frames, office supplies, and architectural molding. As many of you know, and you've heard so today, we've faced significant opposition to our proposal, but in our view, that opposition was baseless and unfounded. The arguments that the Sanitation Department has raised in the past have all been refuted. When sanitation officials initially argued that foam is not recyclable, we showed them foam being recycled into new products. When they argued that dirty foam is not recyclable, we took a bale of the city's dirtiest post-consumer food service foam that came through the city's collection process and was sorted at Sims, and we recycled it right in front of them. They came to Indianapolis and they saw us run the material through our system. When the previous administration argued that recycling would require 1,000 additional new trucks at a cost of $70 million a year, we refuted that, and we were fortunate Commissioner Garcia agreed with us on that. The city has enough excess truck capacity for this lightweight material to add it to the collection stream without any new routes or miles. When the current administration argued that there were no market participants willing to participate in this program, we took them to court to expose that was not true, and we won. In September of 2015, a New York State Supreme Court justice agreed with us, finding that the one undisputed short answer, this is a quote, to whether EPS is recyclable is yes, single-serve EPS is recyclable, end quote. The court also found that the Department of Sanitation, which had opposed recycling, had provided no evidence for its finding that there was no market for this material. To the contrary, the record compiled during the Sanitation Department's review of our proposal made clear that there was a market for New York City's post-consumer EPS products. Our expert economist at Berkeley Research Group is sharing a summary of that evidence with you today on this panel. And you'll hear from some market participants as well. We also proved the environmental benefits. We showed that recycling EPS as part of the city's program will do more to keep waste out of landfills than a limited ban on food service foam alone. This afternoon, we will go even further, presenting evidence from a board-certified environmentalist, environmental scientist, Bill Goodfellow, that shows how recycling EPS can reduce the city's carbon footprint and conserve fossil fuel resources. Today, I'm here to reiterate that we stand behind our proposal to recycle your foam. We're also reiterating our commitment to recycle all the other polystyrene materials that the city accepts in the recycle bin but doesn't recycle. This will save New Yorkers hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. In 2013, we promised to build a facility that can process all of New York City's polystyrene, and we were told we'd never do it. Well, we did do it. The facility is built. Together with PRI, we have more than $8 million invested in this facility, and we've invested in technology that didn't exist a few years ago. It makes recycling environmentally effective and economically feasible. The record is clear that our proposal is a financial and environmental win-win for everybody. The mayor's vision for One NYC calls for zero waste, and our plan certainly steers NYC in that direction. offering to reduce net landfill rates starting on day one. The mayor's vision for One NYC also calls for a greenhouse gas reduction, and our plan does that too. Plus, our plan doesn't cost the city any money. DART and PRI are bearing all of the costs. Moreover, our plan actually saves the city money by reducing landfill costs, which are borne by the city and the taxpayers that fund the city. Moreover, our plan actually saves the city money by reducing landfill costs, by generating revenue also, which the city has a revenue sharing plan with the sorter. So in short, our plan is forward-thinking and an excellent example of how private and public sectors can partner together for the greater good. Isn't that what everybody really wants? To oppose this bill simply because a business proposed it is bad policy. Recycling foam is a win for the environment, it's a win for taxpayers, and it's a win for NYC. I've already mentioned some of the other people who will be testifying today, including an expert economist and environmental scientist, but you'll also hear from the plastics recycling expert that designed the PR facility who will talk about all the new technology used at it. That is if he can get in. He's stuck downstairs on the street, so we'll definitely want to get him in here, but he designed the facility.
Everyone's in. Everyone's in.
All right, real good.
So he's in some room somewhere.
Okay. All right, fantastic. The owner of Plastic Recycling Inc., who will also talk about how he's already successfully recycling material just like NYC's, despite what you heard earlier. And you'll hear from some of the other recyclers and market participants that want to buy NYC foam. So after hearing the testimony today and reviewing the summary that's attached to my testimony, we respectfully ask for your yes vote for Intro 1480, so together we can help NYC reduce its environmental footprint and move NYC one step closer to zero waste. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
I'm Alan Shaw, president of Plastic Recycling out of Indianapolis, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and talking to you today. You got my testimony. It pretty much tells you a lot about us, but what I'd like to share today is some success stories that we've had that we're facing people just like New York City was on their landfill problems. I started plastic recycling back in 1988, and it was done by accident. I never thought I'd be in the recycling business. But I sold polystyrene sheets, big rolls, to companies like Dannon, Kraft, and Yoplait yogurt. And when they make the 6-packs of yogurt that you get in the grocery store, you peel off that lidding film. Well, when they generate makes the yogurt cups, they generate 20% scrap that they have to discard. And every time I went to one of their plants, they asked, why doesn't someone come up with a way to recycle this? And that's how plastic recycling started back in 1988. I built a system thinking I would sell them a system, not recycle it, because they're a food processing company. They didn't want to recycle it. They said, you make a plant and we'll supply you with the resin or the materials to recycle. So as of today, we're still doing it today. This is the polystyrene. It's got the foil laminated to it, and we get truckload after truckload every month of this material. So we took the yogurt companies from a cost of them having to take it to a landfill, and now we pay them for the same material that they had great cost every month to do. The second success story is that about 1990, the record industry had a big problem. They were getting into CDs, but they had also been making VHS and cassette tapes. Their problem was they had to get rid of their material, or the records or the CDs that they couldn't sell. But the problem was they couldn't take them to a landfill because they had to be somehow destroyed, because if someone went to a landfill, they pick them out of the landfill and take them to a music store and sell them back to the music store. So it was a twofold problem for them. So they came to us after they knew we were in polystyrene and asked us, is there a way we can recycle this? And I asked them how much they were putting into the landfill in Indianapolis, and they were 5 million pounds was going in there. The next week, we started collecting this for them. And we turned, back then it was around $350,000 a year they were spending on incinerator costs, that all of a sudden that went away and we started paying them for this. And these are the CDs that we're doing. And just an example, yesterday before I left, Sony called us and said they have 50 semi-loads of CDs and DVDs that they have to destroy. So those are going to come to us, and we'll destroy them. We'll make them into pellets and make it into useful products. And this clear material, this is polystyrene. This is general purpose polystyrene, which is exactly what foam-made cartons are made of, plates are made of. We take this, recycle it into a clear pellet, and then we sell this back to the egg carton manufacturers. We sell over 15 million pounds of this material that was once going to an incinerator is being made back into a foam egg carton. And now we're going to take that another step, and we're going to recycle those foam egg cartons to be made back into something else. So it's a never-ending success story for us to be able to take all this material that was landfilled or incinerated and make it into a good product. Another story that we did was Imation, which is in Wapaton, South Dakota. They were the largest manufacturer of floppy disks in the world. And they had a problem because they generated a ton of scrap. Never thinking they'd be able to recycle it, we started taking that for them from South Dakota all the way to Indiana. And in a floppy disk, there's a metal piece, there's also the floppy itself. We took all that out, repelletized it, sent it right back to them, and they made more floppy disks out of it. And it was a closed-loop recycling program that we developed with them. Unfortunately, there's no floppy disks anymore, so that program died. Another program that we started was with, that we do a lot of, was with hangers for Walmart. All the clothes hangers, they put in a bin, and those things are brought to us or some other companies that recycle those, and those go back into making picture frames, all kinds of different products on the hangers. Other projects that we do is we do a lot with 3M. We supply them with millions of pounds of clear material to make their Scotch tape dispensers. But also they came to us and they wanted us to supply them with a red material to make these tape dispensers they have now. And at the time that we started developing the pellets to be able to do that, I went through their plant and they were throwing at least 2 semi-loads a month of this material exactly that I'm looking at right now, which is a dispenser that is something is wrong with it. It was molded wrong or whatever. This has a metal blade in it. It has paper that's glued to the sides, and they're landfilling it all. We're taking this now, taking the blade out of it, taking the paper off of it, making it back into red pellets, and then it's going right back to them, and they're making these tape dispensers again out of it. So it's another closed-loop system that we're able to do. So plastic recycling wasn't built for DART. It wasn't built for New York City. It was built to solve problems. And our mission from day one is going out and finding projects that no one else wants to deal with, that we spend the time and the energy to come up with a way and a solution to be able to solve this. And I can say every project that we've worked on, we've been successful to save millions of pounds going to landfills. So our products go into, and then back in 2001, we started another company called Recycling Technologies because I wanted to take our own resin that we recycle and make it into a product. So we got into the cash register business making cores for the paper industry. We make cash register rolls, we make adding machine rolls, we make ATM rolls, we make all that. We're the second largest manufacturer. We started from scratch in 2001, and now we're the second largest manufacturer of plastic cores in the United States for this industry. And then when people keep saying there's not a use for this plastic and foam, and it irritates me because I've been successful, my company's been successful for taking this type of material since 1988. So it can be done. And what are we going to do with all this material? We're going to use it internally for our own use because all this material, whether it's foam or rigid, can be made into this core. And another opportunity that we're going to show, that this is new, no one even knows.
So this is going to have to be your last product placement.
But this is,
no, I'm just saying, all due respect, we got time here.
But this is huge because all the major cores that are the 3-inch, 6-inch core are made out of paper. No company has ever been able to compete in this industry. We're going to be able to compete. We've got a patent on a new core that we came out with that all this resin from the foam and the rigid that's going to be coming out of New York City is going to go into these cores. So there's a huge opportunity. We need this material to continue our growth. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Robin? Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Am I being, oh, wait a minute, push the button, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name's Robin Cantor. I'm an economist and managing director at Berkeley Research Group, and that is an independent economic and consulting firm. I earned a PhD in economics from Duke University and an undergraduate degree in mathematics from the Indiana University of Pennsylvania. And I have more than 30 years of research, consulting, and teaching experience in applied economics, including work related to waste management and the environment. And a good portion of my work is in a number of reports and testimonies already, which has been submitted in various parts of this matter and certainly is available for anyone's review. Based on this prior work, I am here offering 3 opinions regarding the DART PRI recycling plan. The first one is that the market outlook for New York City's recycled post-consumer EPS foodware is positive. And I think that what is very important to understand is that you do have a ready and willing buyer here in PRI for New York City's polystyrene. PRI has indicated to DSNY that its current demand for these materials is more than 90,000 tons per year, and this demand far exceeds the 17,500 tons per year that is assumed to be recoverable in the New York City recycling program. And in addition, PRI has guaranteed to pay $160 per ton for these materials for at least the next 5 years. Regarding this market outlook, the Commissioner previously raised a concern about a single buyer for the New York City material. But I'm here to tell you that economics is very clear on this point, that a single buyer is not a condition that makes a market infeasible or unsustainable. Single seller and single buyer market structures can produce the same kind of market outcomes that perfectly competitive markets produce with large numbers of sellers and buyers. And previously, I did identify dozens of firms that are potential processors for post-consumer EPS foodware, as well as firms that act as brokers, and so make the connections between sellers and buyers. And I further understand that a number of firms have indicated a willingness to consider purchasing PRI's output. To understand market outlook for recycling post-consumer EPS foodware, it's necessary to examine the fundamental driver of the markets for recycled EPS, and that is end-user demand in applications that use EPS and polystyrene. And I think this is one of the things that has not been carefully looked at in the work that's been done for the Commissioner, which is really understanding that this demand for these materials is basically a derived demand, which means that it's a demand generated because people demand a final good. Much in the same way that it's the demand for cell phones that creates the demand for cell phone batteries. So it's very important to understand that you have to look at that further down the product chain to understand what the demand will be for this particular product. And BRG did quite a bit of research looking at what this demand might be, including reviewing third-party industry projections for demand growth, both for EPS and also polystyrene, from a number of standard industry sources, and that material is included in my written testimony. Although the projected growth rates might vary from study to study, there is general agreement among the studies that the demand for EPS is growing. We also looked at the prices for virgin resins and primary materials, and we used information from the Bureau of Labor Statistics that showed EPS use in food containers has the highest growth rate in prices compared to plastic bottles and plastic materials more generally. In other words, virgin EPS has gotten more expensive relative to these other plastics. And it's very important to understand what is going on with the prices of those materials, because those virgin materials, obviously, if the price is low, then recycled materials will find it difficult to compete. When the price is high, the recycled materials will find it easier to compete. And then we also looked at the pricing data for recycled plastics, which indicated that the price for recycled EPS pellets compared well to both the PET product and also the HDPE materials. In combination, all of these things tell you that there is actually a solid economic foundation to invest in the recovery and recycling of post-consumer EPS foodware. The second opinion is that the DART PRI recycling plan would save New York City businesses and consumers tens of millions of dollars per year. And we identified a number of factors that are relevant to the choice between recycling EPS foodware, inclusive of the proposal, and banning its use in some applications. Accepting EPS foodware into the recycling system avoids the costs imposed by a product ban. And generally, again, in economics, banning a product is a very expensive proposition because it forces people to switch to alternatives that may be more expensive, In this case, there are also loss of incremental recycling revenues to Sims and incremental landfill costs. And we reviewed them, and we actually quantified these numbers to support that. Given the alternatives and the landfill implications, the DART PRI recycling plan results in an economic gain for New York City of more than $56 million per year. The third opinion is that the DART PRI recycling plan would decrease New York City's landfill use. And this is because it has positive implications for recycling beyond the post-consumer EPS foodware. It covers materials which include EPS materials subject to and not subject to the soft foam ban, and also covers rigid polystyrene materials. Under the soft foam ban, materials sent to the landfill would be reduced annually by approximately 12,000 tons. But under the DART PRI recycling plan, the amount of materials sent to the landfill would be reduced by approximately 18,000 tons. So more than a 50% increase in that reduction. And that concludes my opinions, and I want to thank you for allowing me to testify about these issues today.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cantor. And Mr. William Goodfellow?
Thank you, and thank you, Chairman Reynos and other chairman or other council members.
Can we just turn off that one? There you go. No feedback. And we've turned off the air conditioner temporarily. It was freezing in here.
My name is William Goodfellow. I'm a principal scientist at Exponent and director for our eco-science practice. I have a master's degree with a research focus on assessing ecological and environmental impacts and environmental toxicology. I am a board-certified environmental scientist, recognized by the American Academy of Environmental Engineers and Scientists, as well as a fellow of the Society for Environmental Toxicology and Chemistry, which is an international professional society represented by more than 100 countries, with a strong sustainability research initiative, as well as a partnership with the United Nations Environmental Practice. I have over 30 years of experience in identifying specific environmental issues, determining causation of observed environmental impacts, and assessing potential impacts from proposed environmental projects. To describe the environmental impacts of recycling EPS single-serve food containers, I prepared a white paper analysis examining the resources requirements of producing virgin and recycled products. I've also used paper products as an alternative to compare the environmental impacts of EPS and its most likely substitute. In the white paper, we focused on energy requirements like fossil fuel use because energy consumption is a critical measure of total environmental impact. For example, if you use more energy, you're probably releasing more greenhouse gases and causing more pollution. First, we looked at energy to make it takes to form a paper cup or a foam cup as compared to a paper cup, which offers the opportunity to assess variables of two products with similar uses. We found that it takes almost 3 times as much energy to make a paper cup, which means that banning EPS or forcing the use of alternatives would increase total energy use and resulting greenhouse gases, total energy use in the manufacturing industry. Based on that, if reducing energy consumption is a goal, then a ban on foam is an environmentally harmful solution. Second, we looked at the energy requirements to recycle EPS single-serve food containers. We found that it takes less energy to recycle EPS products than it does to produce new EPS products from virgin material. This means that recycling is preferable to not recycling in terms of total environmental impact. We also found that recycling processes continued to get more efficient, which increases the potential gains from recycling programs in the future. We looked specifically at the recycling proposal made by DART and PRI. In doing that, we found that the major energy inputs required to recycle EPS single-serve products are the transportation energy to ship EPS to the recycling facility and the process energy used to convert EPS to polystyrene feedstock. In terms of comparison, the transportation energy has the lion's share of the importance. Given DART's proposal to transport recyclable materials by rail, it is likely that the total energy expenditure will be roughly equal to the energy expended to transport it to the landfill. That, coupled with the benefits of reducing overall materials being sent to the landfill and creating products from recycling that are sought after by consumers, recycling of products such as EPS is advantageous both from a carbon footprint and landfill space standpoint. In short, if recycling EPS is transported to PRI by rail, it will be roughly the same energy consumption impact as sending to the landfill. To the extent that the city sends some of its waste to landfills via trucks, the balance tips decidedly in favor of recycling under the DART proposal. The advantages of recycling EPS are further heightened when one takes into account the most likely alternatives. If the city were to ban EPS, for example, consumers would be very likely to increase their use of relatively heavier paper products. Like EPS, these products will need to be transported to recycling facilities or landfills after use at the expense of higher energy consumption on a per unit basis. Switching from EPS single-serve products to paper would emit roughly 2.5 times more carbon dioxide to transport. Thank you very much for your opportunity to provide this testimony today, and thank you for your time and thoughtful consideration.
Thank you to the panel. Just want to ask a couple of questions. In the city council, almost in every single hearing where we're trying to propose something new, a host of council members would come out, but it won't work in New York City, right? That's always the go-to for people that I consider are not necessarily supportive of like innovation, right? We speak about plastic bags and how other cities have done it and they've been successful. But that city is not New York City. That's what always happens, right? New York City is special. But in this one case, it's going to be the reverse conversation we're having here. That in New York City is the only place it's going to work. So can you just speak to me to that being, that's a huge issue for me. Canada, statements from the Sanitation Commissioner regarding Canada and the United States and the shutting down, the reverting back to not doing it in California and so forth, where it seems like the secret sauce, only one company has the secret sauce, but everywhere else it goes apart. But in here, in New York City, it's going to work this time. And it's important to get to that because, I'm going to lean on that conversation too. Where if it hasn't worked anywhere else, it probably won't work in New York City, where it's much more complex. The volume is much higher. The contamination is probably there. We're talking about a 16% diversion rate. That is an issue that we're having. It's moving steadily up, but we're having a hard time after the ban on recycling that we had at one point. So just in general here, it doesn't work anywhere, but it's going to work in New York City. So explain that to me, and then I have like 2 more questions after that.
I would say first it does work in other places, but New York City, the reason it's attractive or more attractive.
Can we just go to the places that the commissioner specifically talked about that she says that they're having trouble, like Los Angeles?
LA is not a program that we partnered with. All the programs we partnered with are doing very well. In Canada, we've been asked to sign a contract, and we're not going to do that until we hear about New York City, until we reach a final decision, because we don't want to compromise our capacity. We want to make sure that, if we commit to New York City, we can handle it. I can tell you that we are accepting loads at PRI, purchasing some without, we're not purchasing, we're getting loads from Canada and paying for the transportation without a contract. I could list off the cities for you if you like. But New York City, it's attractive because you have 8 million people and only 2 MRFs. And there's nowhere else that I'm aware of that has that kind of population going to 2 places. One of the Achilles heels of foam recycling is critical mass. It's such a small percentage of the waste stream that most people say there's not enough of it to make it worth their while. But when you have 8 million people, there's enough of it to make it worth your while. In our talks with your sorter, they thought they could generate multiple containers per week. So they're not going to have to sit on it for months, like it was said earlier. They can turn it. And in terms of the quality of it, it's no different than anywhere else. PRI is actively getting material from Canada. They're actively getting material from California. And those bales look virtually identical from the bales that were generated by your sorter, by your material recovery facility, which, I'm sorry, I keep calling it a MRF. But Your MRF is sorting material that's exactly like the stuff that we're getting in Los Angeles. But critical mass here makes this really work.
Okay. So there are products that typically use virgin polystyrene that can't use recycled post-consumer polystyrene or expanded polystyrene, like foodware. Really want to speak to that as well.
Well, that's true. We have plenty of markets that don't have that requirement. You can do it. You have to get a letter from the FDA. It's called a letter of non-objection. PRI does have a letter of non-objection for their CD cases, which he told you they're converting back into A cartons. We do not have that for curbside material.
Okay. And what's the current market price for clean or virgin polystyrene per ton at the moment?
For virgin, it's over $1 a pound. This is the latest issue of Plastics Recycling News, and
you guys don't publish that, I hope.
what's it? No, absolutely not. This is a Cranes publication. Polystyrene, depending on the volume you're buying, it's like $1.17 or more per pound. And actually,
does that include expanded polystyrene?
Let's see. Second here, polystyrene expanded for cups, $1.11 to $1.14 per pound. And then actually also the post-consumer is listed in here. It was said that it was not in any publications, but it says right here, post-consumer polystyrene. And if you're converted to pallets like PRI is, that's 57 to 63 cents per pound. And PRI has offered Sims 8 cents a pound. So you can see there's quite a spread between what they can sell it for and what they acquire it for.
Right. So, guys, I want to speak to that for PRI.
Do you want this?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
sure.
We'll take it for sure. The recycled polystyrene, PRI, I just want to speak to that right now. How much recycled polystyrene do you sell on a per ton basis per year? Recycled polystyrene.
We don't do it on per ton. Ours is all on per pound. So, but our plant right now, last year, 2016, we did probably 87 million pounds of material coming out of our plants.
Mostly recycled material?
Yeah, it's all recycled. 100% recycled.
Okay.
I mean,
And when he testified in 2013 to the same committee, I believe you said it was 60 million pounds. So you can see the growth that they've experienced, 60 million to more than 80 million.
yeah. And this year we'll probably exceed 100 million is what our expectations are.
Do you landfill ever? Do you landfill any of the products that you receive?
Well, fortunately in Indianapolis, there's an incinerator. So anything that we can't recycle that is, we're a full service recycling company. So we have almost every technology there is to be able to recycle not only styrene, but polypropylene, polyethylene. So if any byproducts that come off of that can't be recycled, they go to the incinerator. But it's probably less than 2%, maybe less than that probably.
So at the moment, you're saying that you can take up to 17,000 tons, up to 70 tons of the expected tonnage is 17,000, of which I think you can take up to 90. I think it was the number, 80. So you have that much capacity. Given how great the market is for this product, why is it that you have 90,000 tons of spare capacity at the moment in your business, in the business model? You would figure, like in waste transfer stations in the city of New York, a lot of people try to peak and make sure that they're at cap. In your case, there's a lot of open capacity. Why is that?
Well, we have our regular plants. We got 2 other plants in Indianapolis that we do different things at, but we pelletize at one, and the other one we do the grinding and all that. I mean, this new capacity is all at the new plant that we just built. So we have a little bit of capacity left at our regular plant, but all the new capacity is going to come out of the new plant that we just built. And like Mike said, we're waiting. I mean, our machine's waiting to be able to do all this. I mean, we've had other cities talk to us, but we've committed to New York City on this project. And if we get involved with another city, then if you guys do come to us, which we anticipate you are, we don't want to say, hey, we can't take all your material or your scrap coming out of here. I mean, we've made that commitment, and we're standing by that commitment, and we're ready. I mean, more than ready to start taking it.
Be careful, cart before the horse. Be very careful.
Yeah.
To Dart, what are the projected costs of installing the equipment at Sims facility in Brooklyn to receive and sort and process polystyrene? So, what are you willing to invest in the equipment at the Sims facility?
The answer is $3 million. They got a quote. I think that their provider is Van Dyke, and their provider came in and gave them an estimate for what it would take to retrofit their facility at South Brooklyn, and then also the one in Jersey City, and then combined, it wound up being about $3 million, and that's what we offered them to cover, 100%.
And the equipment does the job of being able to separate polystyrene from, like, let's say, paper, and that doesn't happen because the big issue here is that paper is the most valuable commodity we currently have and do not want it mixed. So you're pretty much saying that with $3 million investment, you guarantee that the foam will be separated from all the other valuable, like, waste streams.
Sure. So it would cover the cost of an optical sorter, which does that. Which that's technology that we hadn't. When people in this room started arguing against foam recycling, that technology wasn't even invented back then. And now it's something that it can capture the small pieces. It can capture things you couldn't capture before with humans. So it's really effective, and that's why we're having success with this. It reduces the huge cost in recycling foam. So that's great. And in terms of commodities, by overall dollar value, paper generate more revenue for you. But in terms of value, steel cans right now are $75 to $80 a ton. That's a published price. Old newspapers, $40 to $45 a ton. Old corrugated containers, $125 to $130. This is in the latest Recycling Markets magazine. I've got a copy of that for you if you want. We're offering $160 a ton for the material. It'd be the most valuable of any of these items: steel cans, green glass, old newspaper, OCC, everything.
So, and how much can you capture with the system and the equipment that you would be able to buy? What's the capture rate?
I believe it was in the commissioner's determination. I believe Sims had said they believe they could get up to 95%, but we'd have to look at the administrative record for that.
Okay, so it's a range, and 95 is at its highest.
I think that's what they thought they could get up to. Yeah.
Okay, now I want to allow for other council members to say a few things. So, of course, Councilmember Cabrera, who's the sponsor of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to ask you, because as I heard the commissioner, her two central arguments were the economic viability and marketability. Can you address that? Because what I hear you say is that we already have a market for it. There is a greater need for the product. We could use the product right now, and then we have the buyers. I'm just trying to understand where's this gap that we have right now that the commissioner is not getting. Can you help us get there? And also, you were getting ready to mention some of the cities where you have been successful, and I appreciate the fact that you mentioned that the LA, what's happening in LA is not related to the work you're doing. So it's probably, I'm assuming, is either the technology that they're working with over there, or how they're managing their business and their business plan.
Sure. The issue with LA does publicize that they accept foam. It's here. It's in their brochures. But the reality is they're doing a very poor job of capturing it. We agree with that. But it's not a program we partnered with, so we're kind of being handicapped here. We every program that we've instituted continues to work today. We started recycling from drop-offs at our plant in Mason, Michigan in 1990. We still do it. We haven't walked away from anything. Can you imagine the consequences if we did walk away from it? We'd be done. Foam would be done. As far as the pricing goes, we acquire the material for 8 cents a pound from Sims. You figure you got 5 to 6 cents per pound to transfer it. And then if you look at the end market value that was in that magazine that I just passed out, on a per ton basis, the end value of that's $1,140 per ton. You're paying $160. you've got some shipping costs in there, but clearly you can see how the math works on this. And in terms of the facility itself, I'm a little perplexed because we invited sanitation out. We've even let NRDC send their experts out to the facility when it was first being built. We haven't hidden anything from anybody, but we processed a bale from your sorting facility right in front of them. So I don't know how anybody can say it's not recyclable. And another point is, we didn't approach PRI about this. They approached us. We were at a summit at the Food Service Packaging Institute. It was a recycling summit for packaging of all types. PRI was there. National Restaurant Association co-hosted it. They approached us because they said they were running out of post-industrial markets for material. They needed more markets, and they thought that this was a good opportunity. So, given their creativity and all the equipment and all the intellectual capital they had, it was a good fit for us. So when we were invited to introduce a solution in 2013 by New York City, we jumped on it.
One last question, and that is, some people are proposing a ban. If we were to have a ban, how much of this foam would it actually end up? How much of it would it end up in our landfills?
Do you want to take that? I mean, this is your data.
So we actually looked at that. And because the ban does not actually get to all sources of the EPS, nor does it address the issue of the rigid polystyrene. So when you look at those two other factors, it turns out that you will reduce the amount of the polystyrene and the EPS that's going to landfill, but you only reduce it down to the 46,500 tons. But under the DART PRI proposal, you'll reduce that further down to about 41,000 tons. So you actually take more because they are taking the rigid polystyrene, and also they're taking there's material that would not have been subject to the ban.
So we have less, and we will make more money in the city.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Can I make
Yes.
one more statement? It was brought up that, in the past, that no one's been successful in doing what we're trying to do.
Right.
And the biggest difference we feel is that the other companies didn't have the expertise that plastic recycling has and DART has on polystyrene. And basically what they were trying to do is they were just going to take the foam and make it into a pellet and then try to sell that and market that pellet. We don't do that at Plastic Recycling. We make a product for every customer. We don't have a stock item. So we're going to take this crystal styrene that we get from the foam, we're going to add additives to it, and then when a customer wants something, we'll make it exactly to their spec. And that's a huge difference
That
in the
is
market.
huge. I think that is in your business plan. I think that's the winnable ingredient right there, because you're not waiting for, if I understand right, you're not waiting for somebody else to go ahead. You're getting the product right there, the recyclable product, and then you're going directly into making the outcome product that you desire. And I think that's the missing link probably in what was happening in Los Angeles.
Yeah, because we do profile. This is a profile extrusion part. So we do this every day. So when we make pellets for the profile picture frame guys, if we can run it in our profiles, we know they're going to be able to run it in theirs. And so we do a lot of testing, so we don't have a lot of return resin coming back to us because we don't want the return resin coming back. We want to make sure it's done right at our facility, and we give our customers exactly what they're wanting.
So one last question, and I'll get back to you in a second. But you mentioned, the commissioner mentions that sometimes paper is not detectable, it's not able to be detected by the sorter. Do you encounter that problem, or is that something that she's looking at what happened in Los Angeles?
I think she was more talking about, she wanted to capture the paper. If paper comes with our plastic.
That's what I meant, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
yes.
we have the technology to take the paper. Paper's not a problem for us.
Okay.
We've got the new technology that we're able to screen all that paper off and come out with a good product.
Because she's mentioning in LA, they do have that problem. So your level of technology is able, you don't have no problems.
LA is not using optical sorters to sort their foam.
That's the key, right there.
You'd asked about cities also, and sorry I didn't
Yes.
answer your question, but they're getting material from Burtec in California, Burtec's a MRF, just like Sims. They sent a letter to the commissioner in February of 2016 detailing all the cities that they're actively servicing. And they're not, small cities. You've got Fontana over 200,000, City of Riverside over 300,000. There's 26 cities that they listed in their letter that they're actually doing it. So I thought it was interesting that wasn't mentioned.
Right.
This
Very
is all Southern California.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr.
No problem. Just want to put in perspective, large cities, 200,000 people, that's what we have in like my community board, right? It's like this is New York, and I don't want to run away from that this time. But I want to ask, what's the half-life on plastic? Or on polystyrene, I guess. What's the half-life on it? Half-life is like, I guess, a scientific term. Well, how does it break down? Biodegradable, anyone?
Well, yeah, I don't think half-life is actually something that would be related to a plastic product.
Yeah, I guess that's the point. So it doesn't.
No.
I don't mean.
Because half-life is typically generated towards something that's emitting.
Right.
So you're basically
You're
losing
right.
something
Maybe it's the wrong
such
term.
as radiation. So it's not really.
But it doesn't break
the
down,
one thing,
I guess, is what we're
one thing
asking.
that should be remembered in the whole process is going from taking production of a virgin product, polystyrene, to a recycled polystyrene. There actually is 90% of the energy is maintained in the product that has been already manufactured and when it's recycled. So hence that's why it's economically viable, because most of the energy stays in the product that you no longer have to expend. You've already made that investment in the production of polystyrene the first time. So the second time you don't have to recapture that. So basically, and then the next time you use it, it's even better, and it just keeps on paying dividends. It's really a compounding process.
Right, for me, I want like uncompounded, right? For me, it's like turning it around. It's like not doing it at all, right? Like when you don't have it in the first part of it, then you don't need to worry about it being a problem in the future, right? So for my concept overall is to make sure that we have the highest levels of diversion and that we remove as many of these, long-term issues that are going to be long-term issues from the waste stream right now. So my thing is not necessarily, even if it is, and I'm not saying it is in any way, shape, or form, let's say it is recyclable, whether or not that's the best path anyway, that no matter what the circumstance, maybe banning is the way to go. So I guess that's part of the argument that I'm going to be making more so than anything else. It's not necessarily whether or not it's recyclable, it's whether or not recycling is the right path at all.
Can I speak to that?
Sure, of course.
Okay. Well, polystyrene as a product, regardless of how it's used, is going to be, it's a sought-after commodity for consumers. They're craving for activities for that, so it's going to be produced regardless. I'm not talking about expanded polystyrene, is all polystyrene. So hence the recycling process of it will provide feedstock to the manufacturers to create opportunities, so they'll actually be using less fossil fuels. So from an environmental effectiveness wise, recycling of a product that is taking a lot less energy and a lot less carbon emissions than making it in virgin product is advantageous, and that's why the equation for environmental effectiveness is there.
Thank you for Councilmember Brad Lander. And then it's going to be followed by Councilmember Helen Rosenthal that just joined us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you guys for being here. I do appreciate it, and I appreciate the work that you guys have put in on this issue. And I think, look, a challenge we have, we are council members. We are not experts on solid waste or recycling or chemistry. We have some experts that we look to, right? I look to our sanitation commissioner because I found her to be a trustworthy, honest expert on these issues. And similarly, we talk to the environmental community, and that's why I have the perspective that I have, and I'm just trying to drill down and understand. I want to start by focusing a little on the price question because, and I think it's just worth underlining. I think this is just another version of what the chair said. I don't doubt physically that you can recycle the product, right? I think you showed that. I don't doubt that it is physically possible under some circumstances at some cost to take post-consumer EPS and turn it into another product. But this isn't the easiest place to get into like total understanding of the cost, what you're going to pay for it, what it costs to process, what you can sell it for. It's not easy for us to do that in a public hearing, and it's not the kind of question we usually drill down on, but it's really critical here because that is the question. The question is not, is it physically possible to recycle? The question is the price at which you can take the recycled the EPS, do the processing, and sell it going to work? Because if not, people are just going to buy the virgin product instead or buy a different replacement product instead, and all our EPS is going to wind up sitting in landfills or warehouses or incinerators. And that might make sense for DART, honestly, financially, but it does not make sense for the people of New York City. So I want to start by asking about this price you quoted. You said it was 57 to 63 cents per pound in the plastic news, but I'm looking at it, I want to make sure I understand it. Is that for EPS, for foam, or is that for polystyrene?
Now, to chime in here, but what happens is whether you take a foam cup or you take this, when you recycle them both back into a pellet, right? And so that is post-consumer polystyrene pellets. So it could be both. Now,
but is it both or could it be both?
It is both.
I don't think it's both, because we called Plastic News and asked them, and what they said is that this price is the price for recycled polystyrene pellets, and that in fact they can't quote a price for recycled foam for EPS because there isn't currently a big enough market to generate the price.
That is what they produce, so as a recycled polystyrene pellet. That is what they produce.
Well, that's what you reuse in your own products, which you have on the table, but there's not a market at which you sell it and can quote a price for it, or at least that's not what this price is.
It is.
Yeah, this is black pellets made from foam, 100% foam.
And what do you get when you sell those per pound or per ton?
The same, 50 to 60 cents a pound. And this was from foam. This was from CD cases. You go and put this in a machine and you find the properties are the same. It's the same thing.
If you were to do clean white
foam, it's not the same thing, because we talked before about the difference between clean and dirty. Some of it, I assume an awful lot of what polystyrene and EPS is going into food containers, and at a minimum you can't sell them there, right?
As of right now, no, because we got to get the FDA approval on it. We sell these CD cases. We got FDA approval on, and we're able to go back into egg cartons, foam plates, you name it. We're able to do this with this product.
Right, but recycled CD cartons are a lot cleaner than an EPS foam container that might have had oils and salad dressings and all the kinds of things that we don't want to have recontaminated. That's why the FDA has the rules, isn't it? Otherwise, they wouldn't bother.
The polystyrene as well. You have the other materials are also contaminated.
That right there. Plastic News is going to know better than us, but that is a post-consumer polystyrene pellet.
It is a post-consumer polystyrene pellet, yes. It is not dirty post-consumer EPS. And we don't know what the price for that would be.
Well, no, that's not true. The pellets that they are producing aren't dirty. That's the whole process cleans it. And so you wind up with a polystyrene pellet that's post-consumer. See, look, if he...
the FDA at least can tell the difference.
If he takes plain white foam, just isolated all the colors and removed it from it and ran it through, it's going to look just like the CD case. This is what virgin looks like. It's clear. And it becomes white because as it expands, it stretches it. But once you pelletize it, it's clear again.
I'm sure you do a great job. This is not a reflection on PRI and how good you're recycling. This is just a fact-based understanding what the price will be of this product. And I think there's reason to be concerned if they're telling us that this is for recycled polystyrene pellets and probably from cleaner feed, that the price for recycled dirty foam would be less than this. Either that or that it would cost you a lot more to process it to get it to this quality, which I guess is the other set of questions. So let me go there for a minute, because help me understand you're going to buy it at 8 cents a pound, and what does it cost you to process into something that is clean enough to sell?
Let me go back to your question there on the difference. So if you're taking post-industrial, not post-consumer, that doesn't need cleaning, yes, you get to eliminate the washing step. You still extrude it and all that. So there is an added cost when you have to clean material, but that's washing. But there's still a significant margin between your acquisition, your transportation to Indianapolis, and the final sell price. The final sell price, PRI produces quality pellets. It is in that neighborhood right there that you're seeing. That's why we feel confident that that price is fair for the end product that he's going to produce or does produce.
And the other thing I would say is that, we honestly, I think we'll be able to take this material at some point and get FDA approval on it, because you look at PET bottles all the Coke bottles, all that, they got FDA on that. And there's gasoline in those. You have no idea what's in those bottles when people put that. And it goes through the same kind of process that we're going to go through, and they've got FDA to go back into bottles and other applications, food containers and everything. They've got that FDA. So it's being done today, and we feel that we can do it and clean it just as well as they are.
Okay. I mean, I hear you, and I admire your optimism. To me, it's just an awfully big risk for us to contract long term into something that hasn't worked in any other city on tons and tons of waste material on those hopes. But let me ask you, it seemed like you were going to talk to me a little about the cost of, because obviously it is that delta that I feel like is relevant here. If it was clear that you could buy it, transport it, clean it, process it, pelletize it, all for a price that was less than what you could sell it for, then we could have more confidence that it could be recycled. So I feel like we know for sure what you'd pay Sims for it. Can you walk me through your costs of transportation, washing, processing, so we can understand kind of how much room there is between that 8 cents and even stipulating for a minute that I'm not sure the 57 to 63 cents is right, how much room there is. So how much does it cost you to do those things per pound or per ton?
Well, hopefully we're going to be able to do this by rail, which is a big cost savings. Once we go from truck to rail out of New York City, it's going to see a significant cost.
We don't have any freight rail that makes it to this side of the Hudson, much to many of our chagrin, but
no.
Well, Sim said that we could ship by rail when we asked them, so that's what we're going off of.
They're going to go up to Selkirk, and
I don't know if they barge it to Jersey City and then load there. I don't know how they do that, but
okay.
And I know CSX.
I love rail, and I love freight rail, and I like the idea of our waste going out of here on rail rather than on trucks. But part of the problem is that there's no rail freight tunnel or bridge on the Hudson south of.
How are you transporting all the other recyclable commodities coming out of Sims? Is that by truck then?
I mean, a lot of things are trucks. Some things are barged to Jersey where they can then be put on rail. So that may be what we're talking about.
That might be the plan. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. So hopefully by rail.
Yeah. And then the other.
Yeah. So you've got your acquisition cost of 8 cents a pound. You got your 5 to 6 cents transportation cost. You've got your processing cost and sell price. And the processing costs, there's a lot of room there, and we're not comfortable telling everybody here exactly what that is. But this is a business proposition for us. We wouldn't be engaging in this if it was something we had to subsidize. We're comfortable with setting up Sims with the equipment that they need to process it, but that's not the purpose of this program.
So I mean, I understand
for this to
that, and I
expand across
appreciate
the
your
country.
your proprietary issues. At the same time, if we be the only folks doing it at anywhere near this scale, committing ourselves for the long term in a way that would have a lot of costs for the city, and there's only one single buyer, I don't think it's good enough to say, well, you can't tell us what it would cost to process. Like, you're really asking us to be your partner here. Like, this is not a market with a lot of buyers and sellers, with posted prices, and with multiple competitive players. You're asking New York City to be your partner in this process, but you won't tell us what it's going to cost to process. So it's pretty hard to have the level of confidence that would be necessary to overrule our sanitation
willing to sign a
commissioner.
contract to guarantee it. We're willing to sign a contract to guarantee it.
Well, for 5 years, you're willing to put the money in, but that doesn't mean it won't sit in a warehouse, and it doesn't mean you guys wouldn't pay the cost of having it sit in that warehouse rather than having it wind up recycled.
Well, we're very transparent. We offer, you can come and see the facility anytime and watch it be processed.
I don't doubt physically, as I said before, that you can. That's just not the question. But I believe you that the facility does a good job, but that doesn't mean that if the price doesn't work to produce it below the cost of other feedstocks, that it's not going to wind up in landfills or incinerators or warehouses.
I mean, like I said at the beginning, plastic recycling was not built for this. We built a company back in 1988, and if I didn't dream or feel that I was going to make money, I wouldn't be doing this. We're going to make money on this project, because we are going to use a lot of this material internally. So we don't have to rely on outside customers to buy it. We need it internally. And then we know that there's customers out there, numerous customers, that we've got lists of customers that will buy this material once we clean it up and get it into them.
Are you guaranteeing the city a recycling rate so that we could have 100% confidence that it isn't going to go to incinerator or landfill? I mean, I admire the optimism again, and obviously that entrepreneurial spirit of trying something new is great, but it feels very risky given, you know, the Bloomberg administration, the Blasio administration, our sanitation commissioner, the whole environmental community.
And that's why
That's
I
a
share
lot of
all these success stories, because every one of these companies that we talked about, they hoped and dreamed that we'd be able to do this, but we proved to them that we've done this. We've done it since 1988. So this is not any different than what we've done with these other companies. You know,
Well, but, okay, there's a big difference between those companies and and New York's. Anyway, let me just ask one more question, and then I know there's a lot of people signed up to testify. I just want to ask about what you'll take from SIMS and won't take from SIMS. It's my understanding that in the infrastructure agreement that you proposed to them last time, there were some strict standards on what you would and would not take from them. Has that changed, or is that still the case?
Every industry has bail specs for MRFs for their materials. Our bail specs are actually more lenient. Most of the bail specs are 95% plus purity. We allowed for 85%, so that SIMS can dial in their equipment, you know, and meet with us. I believe, I'm fumbling through here, but I believe it's in your testimony. There's some bail specifications in there for you to take a look at. And if there's not, I will certainly get those for you. But we're very, very tolerant in those bail specs.
All right. Mr. Chair, is SIMS testifying later? All right. All right, because I really don't feel qualified on my own to dive into bail specs.
If they're not there, if they're not there, I'll get them for you. But
all right, I'd like to be able to follow up with you and with them on what that looks like and whether that's sort of reasonable or whether they're still going to wind up sitting with a whole lot of this stuff.
Absolutely, and you know, in the contract that we agreed to them with in principle and you know, both shared that with the commissioner back in 2014. You know, we did have guarantees in there, and we're happy to, you know, put guarantees in there for you that address your concerns.
All right. I thank you for your testimony, you know, and I do appreciate your optimism. Again, I think given...
I was going to give you this is the exhibit that was on the previous, that talks about the specs. I don't know if you want to talk about it, but it's there.
All right. All right. Well, I'll just point out that it looks to me like there are, you know, a fairly substantial number of specifications for where there can and can't be contaminants. And at least in this one, that one of the contaminants not allowed at any level at all is oils and grease. But, I mean, aren't there a lot of oils and grease on our
If you look at,
post-DPS?
actually look right below that, you'll see exclude.
I knew this was dangerous
food
to start
service
asking
pack.
questions
Yeah,
about
right.
bail specifications.
It clarifies what we're talking about with that. And that's standard. That's going to be on any spec that you would get from the Association of Plastics Recyclers for any of your plastics. They say that. The reality is, yes, you're going to get some of that, but you have to have your protection. Typically, in the recycling industry, if you allow for a certain level of contamination, you're going to get it.
But this is where I guess I just want to push on this again then. Like, I think all of the cases where you're talking about the sort of normal situation, normal bail specifications, are situations where there's multiple buyers for the commodity at the end of the process. And that's just what we don't have here. We don't have multiple buyers. I mean, and I've talked to Tom Outerbridge at SIMS about this approach because he would like to take everything that comes out of SIMS. And I had a lot of conversations with him about plastic bags. He'd love if there was someone that would buy his dirty post-SIMS processing plastic bags and take them and go do something good with them because his alternative is to pay to landfill them. But in this situation, we don't have that normal relationship because we'd be entering into a long-term single-source contract without any ability for us to adjust on our end. And so if things change in the market and the product does not wind up getting recycled, then we've just entered into a long-term contract to send a whole lot of EPS foam to landfill.
Well, would you say that you view Tom as a recycling expert?
I view Tom as a recycling expert.
Because
and I've talked to him about this at some length.
We sat down with the commissioner and reached a deal in principle to recycle this foam. So why would he take that risk if he's an expert and he had concerns?
Well, you're
for his own
guaranteeing
company?
him a price. So, I mean, if you guarantee him $160 a ton, it's definitely a good business proposition for Tom to say, sure, for $160 a ton. But that doesn't in any way give me my questions have all been about the confidence that we could have or not have that after you pay him for that product, that it's going to wind up recycled. And with due respect, and I don't want to get in a battle about it. I don't doubt you'd like to get it recycled, but it does seem to me you have a very substantial financial interest in New York City not banning styrofoam, and that might be well worth paying for.
We do have a significant interest, but we also, truly want to see this material recycled. You'll hear later today from a recycling expert that hopefully will address some of your concerns. The person that built this facility that's built many other plastics recycling facilities. So hopefully that'll give you some comfort. You're also going to hear from a number of businesses that have an interest in this material as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rosenthal.
Hi, thank you for testifying. I'm sort of doing a couple of different things at the same time, so I apologize. But how much money do you guys think you're going to make off this deal? Why are you so interested in this? No, we just have different jobs. You're in the private sector. I'm a public servant. I'm asking you what you're going to do that you think is so profitable, not what you're going to do. I'm asking you, how much profit are you going to make off of our garbage?
Good question. A lot, I hope. I mean, that's our
Great.
goal.
So if the deal is that we do this and all the profit comes back to public service, are you still interested? We'll use the money to, I don't know, build more homeless shelters and take care of, paying our workers the rate they should be paid. Now, are you interested in doing this?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I'm asking if you would be willing to do this as a not profit-making venture, but a venture where you believe in your product, you think it's great to recycle, and you would give all the money, all the profits back to the city of New York.
Well, PRI is a private business. I can't speak for them on what this is their undertaking. We're facilitating part of it, but this is their undertaking.
I don't know why. What's in it for New York? I just don't see it.
Well, New York saves millions of dollars in revenue every year. The ban that's been proposed is a partial ban, and when you look at all polystyrene.
No, I asked you, what benefit is it to the city of New York?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
If we're going to lose money.
No, you're going to save millions of dollars
and
by landfill diversion.
And it's not going to help the environment.
Okay, I'm sorry. I know you missed the beginning, but they talked about the environmental benefits, zero waste, greenhouse gas reduction. But on top of that,
it saves millions of dollars. So if you don't make the product at all, you still get that benefit, right? So if you don't make the product,
well, there's going to be
banned, then there would be zero waste, and there would be, no carbon dioxide released into the air. So why make the product?
In a perfect world, I think that that makes sense. But the reality is, people are going to continue to use takeout containers.
Yeah. So this
and
is
Dr.
the public
Goodfellow
sector
spelled out that the alternatives
What I'm not
actually have
hearing
bigger
from you is why we should help you make a profit, and why the city of New York couldn't benefit.
Why
off the
recycle
profit.
any of your metal, glass, or plastic? Because it's the same situation.
Right. So until I hear an answer about that, I don't know why a public sector, right, whose job it is to protect taxpayer money, right, to protect its citizens, to make sure they have clean air, why would we invest in something that makes you a profit?
Can I take your question and pose it another way because it was the other aspect.
That's the way I'm asking
Well,
it.
no, because your other aspect was the environmental benefit.
Nope, I'm asking it the way I'm asking it.
Okay, so here's
city
the benefits.
government is not here. We are not here to help companies make a profit. That's just not what public service is about.
So what you missed is this is going to save New York about $2 million per year in landfill fees.
$2 million.
It's going to generate.
It's an $86 billion budget. So you're going to save $2 million a year in landfill fees. Go ahead.
And it's going to generate millions of dollars in revenue. It's going to save
$1 million.
It's
$2
going to
million,
save your
$3
consumers
million?
$51 million per year. I think $51 million is significant.
So if we don't have it at all, if we have nothing of this product, ban it altogether, and instead invest in a product that perhaps doesn't destroy the planet, Why not invest there with our city dollars?
Well, I think you're starting from a biased standpoint because it
True.
doesn't destroy
I
the
am.
planet. Now, the alternatives, Dr. Goodfellow talked about the alternatives, they're actually worse. So if you're truly concerned about greenhouse gases, if you're concerned about climate change,
You know,
he
I'm
gave
going
you-
to wait to hear from the experts this afternoon
the
about
expert
that.
just spoke, but you missed it.
I,
Dr. Goodfellow spoke.
So first of all, this live streams throughout the city of New York. So I've been watching it up in my office for the last 2 hours. So I don't appreciate you're making an assumption about how I've been spending my time, number one. And number two, I would like to hear from some additional experts who I have worked with, who I trust, who have told me that what you're saying here is not true. So I'm waiting to hear from them. I have heard from the good doctor. I still get back to my fundamental point of why would the city of New York participate in something that would help a profit-making business when we could actually invest in things that are good for the planet and decrease a market for something that we're not so keen to have, right? Same thing as fossil fuels. Why not disinvest from coal and invest in solar, geothermal, wind? That's where I want to see jobs created. Those are the jobs of the next generation. I still am not sold why I want to help you make a profit.
The alternatives have a greater carbon footprint.
Not hearing it,
Understood.
but thank you for your time.
Understood.
Councilmember Constantinides. We're almost done here. We're almost done. Then we get to time limits.
All right. Just very quickly, just a quick follow-up for PRI. What cities in California and Canada are you working with to take those materials from?
You want, I mean,
I asked the questions. I'd like an answer, yes.
in California, there's at least 20. Fontana, City of Riverside, Corona, Desert Hot Springs, Grand Terrace, Highlands, Indian Wells. I don't know what that one, how do you pronounce that?
Europa Valley.
Rupa Valley, Lake Arrowhead, Montclair, Marengo Reservation, Norco, Ontario, Palm Desert, Palm Springs, Rancho Chimanga, Rancho Mirage, Rialto, Crestline, Rubidoux, Running Springs, San Bernardino, 29 Palms, Uplands, what's that?
Yucca Valley.
Yakima.
Oh, Ukaipa.
Ukaipa and Yucca Valley.
So how many people in those cities total? More than Queens? Because I got 2.5 million people in Queens alone.
Like 1.7 million
Total.
in that, yes.
Okay, so how about in Canada?
The big cities are Waterloo region, the city of Kingston, then there's Niagara Falls, Port Colborne, St. Catharines, Thorold, and Welland.
How many people total?
Don't know.
Don't know on that.
No, so we're talking about not even one borough of the city of New York, and yet somehow you're saying that you can transfer this, you have the capacity to sort of do this in a city of 8 million people when the sanitation commissioner is saying this is not viable. With no real evidence other than your good word, as our chair has pushed out.
We invited sanitation to come and take a tour of the facility. We showed them the facility. You'll hear from an expert today that designed it that can talk about the capacity also.
I mean, this facility is 500,000 square feet. It's got to be one of the largest recycling facilities in the United States.
But you can understand why it's a little bit of a leap of faith, right? You're asking us to, it's like asking us whether or not I can sit. I think Tim Tebow is going to play baseball for the Mets this fall. He looks good, but I don't think that's really going to happen.
I guess I just want to insert here that, again, one of the things that's been pointed out is that there are economies of consolidation because you are so large, and there are economies of scale that are operating here to make this a profitable proposition. But I think that the other thing that I keep hearing being missed here is that this notion that, again, if there's this single buyer, that somehow or another this is putting you at much more risk because, again, they have agreed to a certain price that they are guaranteeing. And in fact, you're talking about a product that people get great use out of. And the alternatives to the product are more expensive. So you're going to impose all this cost when the risk is being absorbed by the proposal as opposed to having New York City absorb the risk. If at any point you decide this isn't working out, this isn't what you thought, you've just delayed all of that cost that would come through the ban. You've delayed it, which is always a good thing. It's not a good thing to accept a cost immediately as opposed to being able to postpone it.
The big opportunity here is that the opportunity that New York City has over.
A microphone, please.
Oh.
I want to make sure you're on the record. I don't want this to be missed.
The biggest opportunity is that New York City has SIMS. SIMS is a unique MRF, and there's not hardly any other MRF in the United States that has the capacity or the capabilities that SIM have. I mean, this is unbelievable opportunity. I mean, I don't see where it's a lost situation for you guys. I mean, it's going to be a win-win. I mean, you're going to save a lot of money for going to landfills. It's environmentally, it's going to be unbelievable the amount of material that we'll be able to take and make into a new product. It's a no-brainer. I mean, I think that we're giving you the opportunity to see. You guys are going to. All these other cities in the United States are going to look at New York City and see how the program's going to work and how successful it's going to be. And then there's going to be major cities that's going to follow you guys.
Yeah.
Or we will be the city that bans it and then they follow that.
Right.
So I just want to be clear.
Right.
There's two sides to every story here.
Right.
I want to allow for Councilmember Cabrera to speak now because we gotta move on. So Cabrera, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. So what I hear is, look, the assumption that I hear some of the arguments being made is because if it's larger, because you have more ways coming through, right? That somehow is it more difficult to do, or is it the machine is still going to do what it's going to do, right?
Oh yeah.
So this is not gonna put you in a situation that you can't produce. I mean, you're producing for literally a couple of million people in California and Canada. So I still don't understand the argument that is coming through here, which is basically saying because it's more, I guess the economists, you're the one who's really pointing here, that if it's more, that somehow we're going to be less effective and actually going to make more money. As a matter of fact, in order to work better, is that what I hear? In order to work better, we're in the best possible situation in New York City in order to work. And you already showed it that, as a matter of fact, let me ask you this question. Has there been, and I didn't hear from the commissioner, none of the cities that you mentioned, none of the places you mentioned, has there been any complaint? Has there been any articles that say that you have not been effective? Is there any data showing that you have not been effective?
None of the programs that we've partnered on.
So in the research field, and when it comes to following the true science here, because this is what it's going to come down to, following the true science, you have no science telling us. As a matter of fact, I hear the opposite in the science here. I hear the science saying, if I understand it right, that it takes 3 times more energy and carbon footing with paper cups. Did I hear that right? With paper products?
It's actually 2.5, but yeah,
2.5.
You're on the right scale. So we assessed that just to make sure that we looked at what are potential alternatives. Should that the EPS not be available to the consumer, because the consumer is going to have a need, and so the alternative by using a fluted paper product actually requires 2.5 more times energy than EPS.
And it's actually less energy with recycle versus virgin, right?
Correct.
And then transportation. What was that? Is that like pretty even with landfill and recycle, or is?
When you take into consideration only factoring in rail to rail for EPS recycling, rail to the landfills, they're very similar.
Very similar.
I mean, within like 3 to 5% difference.
Okay, so we have a Taiwan.
When it's trucks, when it's 100% trucks going to a landfill, that it's considerably, I mean, it's almost double and triple the amount of greenhouse gas for transportation.
Okay, that's very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. And see you soon. All right, so we're going to go through this. We have about 11 to 15 panels, depending on how many folks are here. We're going to start with Ron Gonen, Priya, Beryl, Brendan Sexton, Eric Goldstein, Beryl Thurman, and Priya Magakar.
For the record.
Oh, great. Okay. Thanks so much. Maybe we can all squeeze.
Five folks. We'll make it happen. There's a chair right here on the end that you can take,
Or maybe
5 at a time. And we're going to do a couple of things.
one from
This is our first group of. We're going to do 2 minutes each for this one. What I would like to say to the public is every testimony is important. Every single testimony that you could possibly provide to the city of New York is of value. But we can get it in writing is one thing, and it'll be put on the record. And 2, should any of the statements that you make sound exactly the same as, let's say, this panel, the panel before, you might want to hold out so that new voices can be inserted into the conversation. We're going to do a 2-minute clock now, and we are going to start with Eric Goldstein. Where are you from, Eric?
Hi, my name is Eric Goldstein from the Natural Resources Defense Council. Thank you for this hearing, Mr. Chairman, and greetings to the members of the committee. We strongly oppose Intro 1480 and instead support legislation that would ban polystyrene food and beverage containers. That's the only sensible and proven way to get rid of the billions of foam containers that constitute a first-class environmental nuisance throughout our city. In short, Intro 1480 is an industry-backed proposal that's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Even in the industry testimony today, nobody contested the fact that dirty foam food and beverage containers pose litter and environmental challenges. They pollute virtually every New York City neighborhood. Their foam containers interfere with the city's recycling program, as the commissioner talked about. They interfere with the city's expanded efforts to compost all of our organics and food waste, which makes up 1/3 of our waste stream. And there is no doubt that environmental organizations love recycling. But recycling is not the answer for dirty polystyrene foam. The reason is simple. This material can't be effectively recycled in New York City or anywhere in the New York region. This is not, I'll skip over that. The incontrovertible evidence is here. Not a single big city in America has implemented a recycling program for dirty polystyrene foam. Not one. And in all the testimony we heard from industry today, they were naming Podunk and Topeka and all of that. Let's look at the 30 largest cities in America. And as you'll hear from further testimony down the line, from Chicago, Los Angeles, Houston, Philadelphia, all the way through, not a single large city in America successfully recycles dirty polystyrene foam food and beverage containers. Not one. And you could be sure that if the industry experts who testified earlier were familiar with large cities that do recycle this foam anywhere in North America, people from those cities would be here today. There is an answer. One other thing. Even if the city recycling program were to designate foam as recyclable, most of the cups and clamshells would not make it into the recycling facility in the first place. Many are tossed out in the waste baskets and at street corners. Lots are left as litter as streets and under park benches. And even for that which is brought home, city statistics show that more than half of the residential trash never makes it into recycling. So even if there were a recycling program and it were possible to recycle this foam, most of the cups and clamshells generated in the city would not end up in the program.
And we're going to go through questions, so don't get
let me just add
too concerned that we're not going to give you a shot out here.
Let me just respond to 3 of the questions that have come up in the earlier testimony.
Yes, go ahead.
First, Councilmember Cabrera said that small businesses would be devastated by a ban. None of the evidence anywhere else in communities that have instituted bans, and by the way, more than 100 communities around the country have instituted bans, and these are big cities like Seattle, San Francisco, and Portland, and Minneapolis, and Washington, D.C. These are cities that have instituted bans, and none of them have found devastating economic consequences. In the bill for a ban that has been drafted by yourself, Councilmember Lander, Councilmember Constantinides, and others, there is a provision that allows for a waiver for small businesses if there's undue economic hardship. This is a provision that is replicated from the San Francisco and other laws. Those laws have served successfully to address that issue, but very, very few businesses have made use of those provisions because the reality is there's a trivial difference, if any, between the price of compostable trays, compostable clamshells, and the polystyrene foam clamshells. The evidence of that is New York City. We've abandoned 850,000 polystyrene trays a year that the Department of Education used. They switched to compostables at less than a penny a cent difference in the price. But again, if there are small businesses, because we care about small businesses that have economic problems, they could apply for a hardship and continue to still use that thing. Second, one of the experts from Indianapolis talked about recycling CD cases. Okay, that's great, but we're not talking about all polystyrene, and we're not talking about CD cases. We're talking about dirty, expanded polystyrene foam, which is 95% air. And it makes no sense, even if it was de-densified, to ship that material of such low value 700 miles to Indianapolis to be recycled. Why, if this is such an economically sound proposition, why aren't there recycling facilities for this material right here in the New York region? Let's take a look at paper in contrast. There, a company came to New York City, Pratt Industries, based in Staten Island. They're taking all of our paper right close by. We know that makes environmental sense as well as economic sense. In the new organics program that the council has advanced, you were the ones who specified we're only going to require food businesses to send their organics to composting facilities if those facilities are located within 100 miles of New York City. It doesn't make sense, and yet here we are talking about an untested facility and sending waste 700 miles away. Finally, recycling versus downcycling. Recycling means to collect materials for remanufacturing that those materials came from. Aluminum cans, you recycle it, it becomes an aluminum can. Paper, you recycle it, it becomes paper. This isn't happening anywhere in the United States for expanded polystyrene foam. DART hasn't shown us a single recycling polystyrene foam coffee cup, and you can be sure if they had one, we would have seen it here today. So to the extent there's any remanufacturing, there are 2 big differences. It's clean foam, not dirty foam, and there's no federal permission to make food service articles from polystyrene foam. One last note. This is a very risky proposition to try, for the first time of any big city in America, to try this kind of recycling of dirty foam. And New York City normally doesn't want to take those risks with taxpayer dollars and with taxpayer interests. And it's still largely a hope and a dream. As someone who's participated in city council hearings for more than 30 years, I can say that the subject of this hearing really is, to use the commissioner's words, quite disheartening. There is no big push for this kind of recycling, not from the sanitation department, not from the environmental community, not from government efficiency experts, not from national waste experts. This proposal is an attempted hijacking of public policy by a very well-funded private industry with a direct financial stake in the outcome. And this is exactly the wrong time for that proposal. People in this city are angry. They're angry about abuse of privileges and financial wealth. And I believe that they are going to be objecting very, very strongly to this ill-conceived private benefit legislative proposal. Thank you for the time.
You're welcome. You're gonna have to do the wave, guys. Good job, Eric.
Got my timer on? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Priya Mulgaonkar, and I'm here to testify on behalf of the New York City Environmental Justice Alliance. NEJA is a nonprofit citywide membership network linking grassroots organizations from low-income neighborhoods and communities of color throughout New York City in our struggle for environmental justice. NEJA has been a leader in advocating for a more equitable and sustainable solid waste system for over 20 years, leading efforts for comprehensive policy reforms to address solid waste and the impacts of dozens of transfer stations on a handful of low-income communities of color throughout New York City, our efforts culminating in the landmark 2006 Solid Waste Management Plan. New York City creates roughly 35,000 tons of garbage every day. Garbage trucks needlessly travel thousands of miles throughout New York City, polluting our air with diesel fuel, clogging our streets, and diminishing our quality of life. These impacts are greatest in those few low-income and communities of color where truck-dependent transfer stations are clustered, and along the truck routes used to haul garbage. Because a number of NEJA member organizations and allies come from communities overburdened by garbage, specifically in North Brooklyn, the South Bronx, and Southeast Queens, we advocate for strong policies that minimize the impact of truck traffic and trash in our neighborhoods, including restricting harmful materials that inevitably end up polluting our communities on their way to landfills or incinerators, where they continue to degrade the environment. While we do support strong policies that lead to waste diversion, we're skeptical of false solutions that preclude meaningful reductions in plastic pollution. There is no precedent for recycling styrofoam in any major city in America. In contrast, a ban on styrofoam containers has proven successful in over 100 communities around the nation, including San Francisco and Washington, D.C. Rather than impede the progress on the city's zero waste goals, the council should focus on legislation that bans harmful, unnecessary plastics from our environment and reduces the amount of noxious materials in our waste stream. Low-income communities and communities of color in the city deserve cleaner air and safer streets. Only a restriction on this polluting plastic foam will truly bring our city closer to a fair, zero-waste system. We strongly oppose the passage of this legislation. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Priya.
Great. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Reynoso and distinguished city council members, thank you for the opportunity to address you today. By way of introduction, my name is Ron Gonen, and I have over 15 years of experience in the recycling industry as an entrepreneur, a CEO of a recycling company that serviced over 50 municipalities around the country, as a deputy commissioner here at the Department of Sanitation, and as an investor. Currently, I co-lead Closed Loop Partners, an investment firm focused on investing in municipal recycling programs and advanced recycling technologies. Investors in our firm include many of the world's largest consumer goods companies, such as Procter & Gamble, Unilever, and Johnson & Johnson. Municipalities where our firm has provided financing for major recycling projects include Chicago, Minneapolis, and Memphis. Perhaps most relevant to this hearing, our firm invested in the most advanced plastics recycling facility in North America, QRS, which is located in Maryland and focused on trying to recycle plastics from municipal waste streams that cannot be recycled in current programs. In my position, I've reviewed hundreds of investment proposals from municipalities and private companies focused on municipal recycling infrastructure, advanced recycling technologies, and markets for recycled material. We have yet to see a single viable proposal for either the sortation or processing of expanded polystyrene from municipal recycling programs. Furthermore, as investors in major recycling facilities that service major metropolitan areas, we are keenly aware of the cost incurred by these recycling facilities if expanded polystyrene enters the recycling stream. Beyond our existing investments and pipeline, we maintain a robust database of technologies under development in the industry, as well as an extensive network of sanitation commissioners, industry groups, major consumer goods companies, and university researchers. We have never seen, nor are we aware of any current technologies or business models that are able to recycle expanded polystyrene from municipal recycling programs. I would be glad to answer any questions.
Good job. Can you repeat? So I think you're one of those experts that Councilmember Rosenthal was talking about that you wanted to hear from.
Yes.
But it's nice to see you back here at a different capacity, and folks that we do trust and have seen work on all types of levels when it comes to recycling. So thank you so much for being here. It's nice to see you again.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Hi, Chairman Reynoso and the other council members. And my name is Brendan Sexton, and I'm a former commissioner of sanitation here in New York, but I'm here mostly, my credential is I'm a friend of Ron Gonen's.
And of ours, too.
And thank you. And Eric's, oh well. I was privileged to be commissioner when we instituted curbside recycling in New York, and so I'm very much an advocate of recycling, as you can imagine. I'm here to represent the Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board, who are also, as a group and individually, very energetic, I'll say, advocates of recycling. And nonetheless, we're here today to testify, I'm here today to represent the SWAB in testifying against the notion of the recyclability of this material, polystyrene foam, expanded styrofoam foam. At least that which comes from the residential waste stream, and that's what is meant by dirty foam, foam that has been near or touched food waste. I think most of you know that when we talk about recycling, we usually know what we're talking about. I contend that in this case, the term is a fake, that this is a slogan advanced by the industry, but they do not actually have anything behind it. There is no established recycling infrastructure or ecosystem in America for expanded polystyrene foam from the residential waste stream. And that's important to note. Styrene is recyclable. The plastic material itself can be recycled, but the stuff that comes out of the municipal waste stream is not like industrial waste, and it's not like waste that's never been used near food. And it's not like waste that's never been in one of our gorgeous white sanitation trucks. I undertook a study of the claims of recyclability last year, 2016, and I called or contacted, and I had an associate working with me, more than 100 firms, municipalities, or others who were on DART's list of recyclers. It was painful for me to sit here and listen to BRG testify because most of those came from their list to the court case. I had not managed to find one single township, municipality, or county in America which has managed to establish and maintain an ongoing polystyrene foam recycling program. I say and maintain because a few did get one started with a hefty subsidy, I wouldn't say bribe, but a contribution from DART. They were managed to get one up, but they couldn't maintain it because there is no market. Los Angeles is their favorite example, and Los Angeles, as you know, is dozens of municipalities all in one. But so I contacted them, and I spoke to my colleagues out there. And there are some, Riverside is one, there are some of the 88 towns that make up Los Angeles that advertise they collect it, they're willing to accept it, but they can't do anything with it. Miguel Zermano, who's a colleague in the LA Sanitation Bureau, said to me, "You can't recycle that stuff, it's garbage." So I said, "Well, could you give me a little more technical language for the council to hear?" And he said, and I quote, "It costs twice as much as other plastics to clean and prepare for recycle just to get it to the point of bale," he said, and then, quote, "There is still no market for the material." Their materials recovery contractor, Burtech, who is essentially their Sims, used to be willing to accept this stuff. They will still accept it if it's brought to them, but their website advertised that none of the municipalities or counties they serve in the upper or lower valley will accept expanded polystyrene now. When I called them to check on it, they just said, well, they'll take it in order not to offend their customers, but it is not being recycled. The foam that comes in to Los Angeles' materials recovery contractor does not get recycled. And that's all I say now, because I have so much more to say.
I know you
I wouldn't know where to stop.
I hear you. Like I said, people are passionate on both sides of this issue, and I also want to thank you for being here as well, given your expertise and your background with what you've done for the city. So this panel is really, Eric is a tree hugger. We know that.
Yeah.
But everyone else, let me tell you, their resumes. all love. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, and my name is Beryl Thurman. I'm with the North Shore Waterfront Conservancy of Staten Island, and we are in opposition to the Recycling Bill Intro 1480. I live and work in the environmental justice communities on the North Shore. Staten Island is also home to what was once the largest landfill in the world until its closing in 2001. Fresh Kills is located on the west shore of Staten Island, and it is 2,200 acres of non-recycled garbage generated by all 5 boroughs of the city of New York. One of NSWC's goals is to gain safe waterfront access for Staten Island's North Shore environmental justice communities. But to do that, we had to bring attention to the industrial waterfront. So we organized waterfront cleanups at the city-owned abandoned properties. That is where we saw pebbled and sand beaches covered with various types of plastic, all in various colors, sizes, and sometimes these pieces hadn't completely broken apart so you could tell what they used to be. So there we were with about 75 or so volunteers cutting back overgrowth, pulling out illegally dumped tires, household appliances, discarded toilet bowls, and at the beach, an area, there would be a group of people. Some had assigned themselves the task of picking up cigarette butts because they are non-biodegradable, and others were picking up plastics, including polystyrene cups and food containers. People loved these cleanups because it made them feel that they were making a difference, that they were doing their part in helping our island and the environment. But I looked at these cleanups as cupcake projects because within a day or two, that beach would look as if we never touched it. The tides and wakes from the boats would bring in a whole new batch of plastics and, of course, polystyrene. It occurred to me that in order for these cleanups not to be acts of futility, we would have to be more responsible in what types of plastic we use and how we dispose of them, as well as using more materials that are naturally biodegradable. Since Fresh Kills closing and it being turned into a New York City park, it is no longer the largest landfill in the world. My understanding is now our oceans are the largest landfills in the world. Apparently, we have learned nothing, thereby making us the smartest, dumbest species ever. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony. I actually want to open it up to council members if they have any questions. Councilmember Cabrera.
You know, you mentioned, and thank you for your testimony, you mentioned there were toilets, bowls, tires. So you're not proposing we should get rid of toilet bowls and tires and ban them, right?
No, what I'm basically saying to you is that we can't fight against human nature.
Yeah, but we could control behavior. And I think the problem that we have in New York, look, I lived in LA, I lived in Virginia, and the problem that we have here is a culture of people throwing things. And you all know that. And I know the environmentalists, which I applaud you. You do marvelous, marvelous work. You really do. But I know you're with me on this, that in New York City, people just throw things. I mean, they just, it bothers me. It's one of my biggest pet peeves, how we don't take care of our own environment. And so I think part of the problem here, the biggest problem is the behavior. So whether it's styrofoam, whether it's toilet bowls, whether it's tires that people are throwing them. And we should embark in an education, I would think, a bigger education plan here in the city and how we should take care of our own neighborhood and start throwing things down. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. However, in the process of trying to do those waterfront cleanups, and you're looking at all of the various plastics that are along the waterfront, that makes it to the shore is one thing, because hopefully we can get some of it, but we don't get all of it. The rest of it is going into the water, and our marine life, our fish are eating those things, and then they're basically starving themselves. They have full bellies, but they're full bellies full of plastic, and then we eat those fish. So that's making its way into our system. So we have to change not only how we deal with the environment, we do have to change our ways, but we also need to eliminate certain things from our environment, which would be the polystyrene. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm getting like a confusing message in here, or maybe I'm not hearing right. I thought I heard you say that it's not recyclable, and then I hear that it is recyclable. I do want to let you know that our staff from the city council, legislative staff, went to see the facilities, and that they're fully operational, and they could do what they say that they're doing. I just wanted to give you that up.
I could answer. I started out by saying no one denies that styrene can be recycled. And in fact, clean industrial scrap, polystyrene, can be recycled. The stuff that came with your television can probably be recycled if you can get it together in an economically, it's clean. It's gorgeous. It's 100% pure polystyrene. You will not find hardly any of that in a sanitation truck. The specs for polystyrene recyclers, when you find one who says he will accept it, always say non-food service. The one town in LA of the 88 that accepts polystyrene foam, which by the way they send to Burtec, which then landfills it, but they say it has to be cleaned, washed, and rinsed. This is not a program from New York. Even for the things we recycle today, we do not ask people to clean, wash, and rinse. We hope that they rinsed out the cat food from the cat food can, but that's about it. It's not as a practice. Theoretically, scientifically, chemically, physically, plastics can be recycled. They're hydrocarbons. As a practical manner, this particular foam, first of all, and second of all, food service foam, which is the ultimate contaminant from a recycler's point of view, because that's where they get vermin and everything else, and neighbors' complaints and all the rest of it. This stuff, no one has figured out a way to do it practically, economically, out in the real world.
You know what I would love to see? I would love to see some of your leadership to come and see some of the facilities. Any of you had an opportunity to visit?
Yes, I have seen plastic recycling.
No, from the businesses that were represented here, because what I hear is what's happening in LA. The problem and the business community were very, very clear. People from DART and the other people who were here, they were quick to acknowledge there are problems with some other companies. But have you had an opportunity? And no fault of your own if you haven't. I think it will be something good for all of us to go. I'd be willing to even join it.
The point is, even if it were a terrific facility, even if it had a long track record of service to major cities, which it doesn't, it's 700 miles away. It makes no sense to send almost anything 700 miles away for recycling. This material is made of fossil fuels, right? We want to get away from fossil fuels. The climate is changing. We don't need this material. There are substitutes that are compostable. They are healthy. They can be used and reused. Other than the financial interest of the companies that have been here, where is the interest for New York City and its residents and its council in taking material that is dangerous to manufacture, and we haven't gotten into the health effects of manufacturing styrene for workers, and then using it a single time for a couple of moments and then having it sit around in the environment for centuries, either in landfills or as litter, and when there are readily available substitutes? It just doesn't make public policy sense.
So you make the mention of why transport is 700 miles away, but we transport garbage all over the United States from New York City, I believe, as far as Virginia and Pennsylvania.
Right.
So we go far.
Right. Even Virginia and Pennsylvania are not 700 miles away, and we're trying to get away from that. No one thinks that that's the goal of the city's program. The commissioner and the mayor and the city, under the last two mayors, have had a very ambitious program to reduce the amount of wastes. No one says that shipping waste to a landfill 100 or a couple of hundred miles away makes sense. Let's not use that as the standard.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Councilmember, may I just add one thing to that? So, as I mentioned in my testimony, we have a team of people that scours the world for investments in recycling technologies. We have investments as far away as the Middle East. So if you can recycle a plastic and you can do it profitably, we're interested in investing in you. As I mentioned, as we've scoured the world for recycling technologies and solutions, we have not found a single company or a single technology that can recycle expanded polystyrene. Now, in the hearing today, I heard a company that says that they think they can do it, right? You heard in the testimony that they said that this is something that they plan to do. They're not doing it. We're investors in a number of recycling facilities around North America that would love to find a home for expanded polystyrene that slips into the recycling stream. I'll get their contact information after my testimony.
Okay.
I will keep an email record of communicating with them to see if they will buy the expanded polystyrene from these facilities that we're investors in. And I'll share that correspondence with you, and I'll let you know if they're willing to offer a contract and buy that material.
Okay, I welcome that, and also the invitation is still open for you to go for a tour. I mean, it would be the ultimate decision for them to say yes, it's their company, but I'd be more than willing to do that. We offer that to some of the council members to do that as well. And with that, I know we have a lot of people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Can I just add one thing? Is this out? In lieu of visiting them all, everybody who handles plastics, you may be interested in knowing that the Alliance of Foam Packaging Recyclers has a list of specs on the website, which you can look up, which says we do not, AFPR, the whole alliance, does not accept meat trays, cups, egg cartons, or other disposable food service items for recycling. And just to help the people understand, on that same website, they give pictures of what is not accepted for recycling. That looks like what's in your garbage probably this morning or yesterday. It's a myth.
Well, I would say that we heard testimony today that they could actually doing it because they actually are doing it. And so this is what I'm welcoming you to come. And what I'm surprised, to be honest with you, is the level of resistance that I get sometimes from friends. And as the environmentalists, I call them friends because that's what they are, of not wanting to come. I mean, it's almost like I don't want to see it. I'm just
because we gotta move on. So for now, I was invited to go and I didn't choose to go. I, for example, do not care for going to a Ford plant that's gonna show me a car that's guzzling gas and how great they do, how efficient it is. I want to see cars go to electricity, or to be honest, maybe do away with cars in general. But that's my point, is why go to a factory to see something that can be done? You can build a car that runs on gas and you can do it very well and efficiently, great. That's not something that I'm looking to support. So I guess the reason I don't go to that plant is because I want to move to a different era, a different space, where we do solar, where we do electric work, where we do things that are going to promote the environment long term. So for me, it's not that it can't be done; it's that I don't think it should be done. That's the difference. Sorry. And I think Brad, and then we gotta move.
So thanks to all of you. So Ron, it's great to see you back here. So you guys you represent investors in a business model. I'm right, that invests
Correct.
in businesses related to and doing business with the municipal recycling facilities.
Correct.
So, I mean, if it were actually economically feasible and practical to recycle EPS, that would make a lot of sense for those MRFs, for the investors, for the related businesses, yes?
Correct.
So, I mean, there's not you guys look to every possible product that can be feasibly and economically recycled.
Correct.
You want products that can be recycled.
Correct.
Okay. So I do feel like you would have no reason to resist. Like this is not like you have nothing immoral about some products versus others. We'd all love to reduce waste, but we'll take the waste that we have that can be recycled and do it.
Correct.
All right, and it's your view as an investor and a business person that this cannot be economically feasibly done.
Correct.
Okay. And then I just want to ask Brendan one question also, because you gave this. You said that in your consultation with some folks who seem to have knowledge that the processing cost to kind of wash and prepare foam was as much as twice as much as other plastics. And
Correct.
And you heard. I mean, I asked. To try to get some information on the processing costs, and the folks on the prior panel said because it's proprietary, they couldn't give that to us. So we don't have that information. But can you I just want to make sure I heard it right, that folks
Yes,
talk to
one of the things that makes polystyrene foam so attractive is that it's very lightweight. That's one of the reasons it's so cheap for the vendor, for the purchaser, because it's mostly air. That's exactly what the problem is for the recycler. It takes boxcar loads of this stuff to add up to a ton. So you can sell. And furthermore, in collecting that boxcar load, you're getting everybody's coffee and sandwich bits and ketchup leavings, and it's just a monster. What the recyclers say, for instance, in LA, is that the OSHA problems of the foam are, because breaks up and goes in the air are a problem for us, but what's really a problem is that this stuff is filthy, and you are always getting contaminants in any load of recycling, any load of recyclables, but this stuff is so lightweight that to accumulate a ton of it, a saleable bale of it, you have to put up with so much trash, and it's mostly food waste, which is, again, the worst, I mean, vermin, etc., that it just, it bogs down the whole facility. You've engaged in a whole different enterprise once you allowed food service polystyrene into your facility. So it's not even a question of dollars or cents. It's a different kind of operation than the one they contracted to run, and they have, by and large, in LA in particular, where very many townships announced they were going to do polystyrene foam, almost none still do. Out of the 88, I think 3 still do. It's just not worth it.
Thank you to this whole panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the panel. And just Ford actually does some good things. I didn't mean I meant like a car plant. I didn't mean Ford specifically. They do great work.
Yes.
Electric
And they provide
vehicles and all.
tours too.
And they provide tours too. So shout out to Ford. Next panel, Patty Moore, Sergio from Sustainable Materials Management, Sergio Firpo from Azure Technologies, Natha Dempsey from Food Service Institute, Packaging Institute, Richard Mayer from MCS Industries, and Moshe Grossman from Dark Container Sales. Yes, please, to the same.
Yes. Yeah, I do. Keep one, and here should be 20 copies.
I might have more than 20 there, I'm not sure.
Okay. So we're gonna go back to the 2-minute clock, and I'm gonna be just a little more stringent. When that beep goes on, I'm gonna say, please end your statement or finish your statement, and I hope you guys don't take it as a disrespectfully. I'm just trying to move it along. So
I have some samples, exhibits.
it's 2 minutes worth of exhibits.
The water.
No, no.
Go ahead. So go ahead. You guys can start.
If there's any in there, is it empty?
And make sure the mic is on when you start.
You're doing fine.
No, your hand was in the way.
Thank you.
Can you bring them?
Okay, whoever's willing to start.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
There you go.
Is this on? Yes. Hi, my name's Patty Moore. I'm the president of Sustainable Materials Management of California and the founder of Moore Recycling. I've been in the recycling industry for almost 35 years. I began one of the very first plastic recycling programs in this country, municipal programs in this country. I have my master's degree in science, and I did my Master of Science degree on that included a foam polystyrene recycling plan for Long Island, which, as you might guess, was a disaster. Let me explain why. When I got started in the early 1980s, the only plastic recycling facility, the only wash facility, was for PET. There were very few outlets. PET, the soda water bottles. Well, there weren't any water bottles then. It was just soda. But now what we see is we have plastic recycling facilities that wash for non-bottles, for film, for wraps, and for foam. And so what I want to talk about is why has there been this dramatic expansion? One of my mentors and colleagues, Dr. Dave Cornell, has always told me that you need 4 things for a successful plastic recycling to happen, really for any recycling. You have to have a large recycle-ready supply. You have to have the technology to convert it. You have to have a profitable end market. And you have to have money to fund the whole system. And I've seen these fundamentals play out over and over again. and demonstrated. So what makes a successful reclaimer? Really, the long-term successful reclaimers are those that are vertically integrated. That means they go from a dirty product to an end product. They also make, they may make other products as well, but they also continually upgrade their facilities with equipment and technology. They educate their employees and suppliers. So why did the foam polystyrene recycling fail when I was involved in it in the 90s? They were taking very low supply. They were doing drop-off programs of the lowest value material, the dirt, the food service stuff that you've been hearing about, how horrible it is. In contrast today, and why I'm in support of 1480 is that we have a curbside polystyrene for not just the foam, but all polystyrene. So we heard that New York City, 8 million people, 2 MRFs, we're going to have that sufficient supply. The auto sort system that didn't exist back in the 1980s, I'm almost done, is going to give you a large recycle-ready supply. PRI knows polystyrene. They're invested in paper, the proper equipment, and so therefore we have the technology. That's the third thing. And you have the DART investment, which is going to give you the funding. So why is it different today than it was then? And why do you hear these people who've been in the industry a long time saying it can't work, it hasn't worked, it doesn't work? Because they didn't have those 4 fundamentals, but now those 4 fundamentals are in place. So I please support recycling.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And remember, wave your hand if you're in support of something. Yes.
Good afternoon. I'm Richard Master, CEO of MCS Industries. We're headquartered not too far from here in Easton, Pennsylvania. I'm here to express our strong support for Intro 1480, legislation that would add foam to the citywide curbside recycling program. MCS is the largest supplier of picture frames and decorative mirrors in the United States. Historically, picture frames have been made from wood and metal. The industry in the last 2 decades moved increasingly toward plastic resin and is as a primary source material. MCS is vertically integrated. We're a manufacturer. We use this material. We produce most of our products from recycled plastic resins. Recycled EPS is the primary material source. I have samples here. The difference between us and Shaw Industries, and the only difference, is that they have cleaning facilities in place to take this dirty material and clean it. We don't have those facilities in place in our facility, but we take packaging material, we take scrap materials, we have densifiers around the country. This material is being shipped into our plant, and we grind it up, and we repelletize it, and we put it into our machines, and we make architectural molding for Home Depot, picture frames and mirrors for Walmart, Target, and Home Depot. Thank you. And, you know, we can make it look like wood products, and we don't have to cut down all the trees in North America to do it. Okay, polystyrene is 100% recyclable and is already recycled commercially in big cities across the nation, small cities across the nation, and communities around the globe. I used to import material from Tokyo, the Tokyo fish market, fish trays on foam polystyrene trays, and you do it here in your Fulton fish market the same way. And I went to Japan. I saw the community-wide recycling programs. There is discipline in Tokyo to assemble and recycle all these materials, even post-consumer at the household level. In fact, we use over 9 million pounds of recycled resin a year. We require 7 million pounds of recycled EPS. Anyone who suggests that polystyrene foam cannot be recycled is just ignoring reality. I wouldn't have a company. I wouldn't be sitting here with 900 people in North America who we employ, and they wouldn't have jobs if we couldn't do it. As I mentioned,
Thank you.
our
I'm going to have
company-
to ask you to.
Yeah, go ahead. Am I? Is it,
For
I'm way over.
quite some time now.
Okay, all right.
But thank you so much for your testimony. Really appreciate it.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this on? All right, sorry. Actually, this is my first testimony. I might not sound as polished as the people before me, but my name is Sergio Firpo. I am the president of Azure Technologies. We are a design and engineering company that builds plastic recycling plants. We have been doing this for nearly 30 years now. And I am here to support Intro 1480. And more than anything, trying to do in 2 minutes a quick overview of the technologies that we have in place and give you a perspective of what is this technology like today versus what it might have been just even 5 or 10 years ago. So in the interest of the time, I'll just quickly point out at some of the things that we have put in the system. My company designed the system that is in Indianapolis. And in designing the system, we knew the challenges because we have been working in recycling for such a long time, and we had worked in 3 other projects with polystyrene. So we are not new at recycling polystyrene. We have tried different things, and I'm here to tell you that this system is a success because of the technological advancement that we can take advantage of recently. So very quickly, I want to show you, you have my testimony, and I have 10 pages, so it's going to be very difficult to go through all of that. You know, in one of the pages you can see there is a complete overview of the washing system that we have here to wash dirty polystyrene foam. And I'm just going to point out just a few things. For example, we have a new plastic granulator that addresses the low bulk density of the polystyrene. And it's a new design by a German company that started about 5 years ago with this, that has screws that actually push the low bulk density into the cutting chambers. When before the low material might get hung up, now it's positively pushed. And there are sensors in there that know how much to push and when to back up. Very quickly, the optical sorters. Optical sorters now have technologies that go from infrared, visual cameras, metal detectors. We have enhanced washing technologies that now, thanks to high-power friction washer, we can take out most of the contaminants. Float sink tank. In page, I think 8, there is an example of the actual agglomerators that we have that deals with another problem of the bulk density of the material and makes it into something.
And sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
If I can just say one more thing.
Absolutely.
I heard in the testimony before somebody that says that dirty plastic from just dirty place cannot be recycled. And I want to say that my company has built a PET recycling company in Mexico City, in Toluca, in Mexico, for Coca-Cola. The feedstock in there is plastic that comes from the landfill. There are pepenadores, families that live picking up plastic out of the landfill, and that is the dirtiest plastic. We provided the technology for that plant to recycle those PET bottles back into bottles, and it has been in operation since 2004. So the notion that dirty plastic recycling, it cannot be recycled, and you can only recycle it clean post-consumer, is really not true. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Reynoso and council members. My name is Natha Dempsey, and I'm the Vice President of the Food Service Packaging Institute. My association represents the food service packaging industry, including many manufacturers of foam. I am here today to ask for your support of Intro 1480. We strongly encourage all efforts to recycle foam based on our research and experience with foam recycling over the past few years. Through our work, we know there are many myths about foam recycling. The three arguments we hear most are there are no end markets, we've heard them today, it's too dirty to recycle, and no one is recycling foam. Here's what we know to be true. On the claim that there are no end markets, we know that the end markets may not be as robust for foam as they are for PET and polypropylene, but they do exist, and there is tremendous opportunity there. In 2014, we commissioned a study to understand what kind of demand there would be for polystyrene, both rigid and foam. We identified over 100 processors and end users looking for recycled polystyrene in the US and Canada. Research also indicated that demand for recycled polystyrene would be increased by roughly 6 and 8% annually for the next few years. As the second argument that foam is too dirty to recycle, this is simply untrue. As part of FPI's broader efforts to recycle all paper and plastic food service containers and cups, we commissioned 2 studies in 2013 and 14. The studies looked at food residue on to-go containers in comparison with other food containers already in the recycling stream, so collected at residential curbside programs like margarine tubs, peanut butter containers, spaghetti jars. We did this in Boston and Delaware. In both cases, the food residue found on food service packaging was comparable to commonly recycled food packaging items. On the third myth that no one is recycling foam, we know that there are over 200 cities that include foam food service packaging in their curbside recycling programs. And they include a number of cities mentioned earlier, but San Antonio, Denver, Sacramento, Tampa, and Salt Lake City are some other examples. There are actually more cities that currently accept foam than have banned it. There are too few cities recycling foam, but we're doing something about it. FPI has a foam recycling coalition founded in 2014, made up of foam food service packaging manufacturers and their suppliers that offer grants to help start or expand foam recycling programs. These efforts aren't different from many others in the industry. The aluminum industry did something similar in the 1970s. The plastic bottlers did something similar in the 1990s. And most recently, the carton manufacturers have done something similar to make investments to get their products recycled. The industry has offered to make investments to get foam recycled in New York City. All we need now is the approval to add this material to the recycling program. So for this reason, we respectfully ask that you support Intro 1480.
Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. Thank you to this panel for coming to testify. Next, what's the next one? No questions? Thank you. Thank you so much. I think we're gonna. Patrick Diamond from Surfrider, NYC. I hope I said that right. All right. Jeremy Cherson from Riverkeeper. Colin Beaven. Yep. No Impact Project. Melissa from Nilpe. No. I'm trying to stay away from a lot of these last names. EK. Yeah. Kelly Lester. All right, everyone's here. Yeah. Oh, here, I think I got one here. Go ahead. Any. There you go.
Great. You can hear me. Hi, I'm Patrick Diamond. I'm with Surfrider, New York City. we have 450 members here in the 5 boroughs, but we have a network of volunteers, supporters, state and nationwide that reaches into the thousands. I guess I'll rely on my written testimony to sort of cover really the environmental issue of EPS. Surfrider NYC, we do a lot of beach cleanups in the Rockaways. We do water quality testing year-round in the Rockaways and Coney Island. We have a youth program, a new youth program in the Rockaways. I would encourage any of the city council members to come join us for a beach cleanup in the Rockaways on a busy summer day, and you'll see the extent of the problem that this material causes. But what I haven't heard a lot about today, I've heard companies from Indiana, Michigan, Mexico, Pennsylvania, but I guess I want to talk about the New York City taxpayer and citizen. We have a $1.64 billion trash problem in this city, and I want to bring some focus to the 3 R's of sustainability, which is reduce, reuse, and then recycle. Recycle is the last of the R's. When you look at New York City's diversion rate, it's 16 to 17% of material that can be recycled actually gets recycled. If you look at the court papers from the New York State Supreme Court decision that stopped the 2010 ban, they used the data point of the DART Corporation's state-of-the-art technology that can remove 75% to 95% of this material. If you do the math with New York City's diversion rate, that's still only 13 to 14% of material actually being recycled. So the chairperson, you said you'd mentioned to the DART Corporation they're putting the horse before the cart. Talking about recycling this stuff is really putting the horse before the cart. We should really be focusing on educating New York City people on how to properly recycle. They already struggle with a complicated recycling scheme. Bringing a new product into it is only going to make things more difficult. So I would really encourage us to allocate resources to educating people on the existing recycling scheme and also educating them on how to reduce waste in the first place. Thanks.
Thank you. And if you were here for the executive budget hearing that we had in the beginning of the day, we actually talked about increasing funding to marketing so that we could teach folks how to do what they're supposed to do already. But thank you for your testimony.
Hello, my name is Colin Bevan. I'm the founder of the No Impact Project and also the author of several books on environmental issues, but most importantly, a citizen of New York City, and I'm here as a concerned citizen. I want to say, first of all, thank you all for your service. I want to say how proud I am to live in a sanctuary city, a city in which I can feel as though my most disempowered fellow citizens are protected in the face of the fact that the federal government is failing to do so. And I want to say that with the gutting of the United States Environmental Protection Agency and also the potential withdrawal from the International Climate Accord, just as it falls to the cities to protect us from immigration authorities, from immigration issues, it also falls to the cities to protect us from environmental and climate catastrophes. It's the most disempowered who face victimization from environmental catastrophes. I in my home borough of Brooklyn, the people who I watched suffer the most were the elderly people in the NYCC housing who were stuck during Hurricane Sandy because the electricity was out. Whilst all the people in private homes had electricity, the NYCC housing did not, and people were having to walk up many, many flights of stairs to bring elderly people their prescriptions. So it is with other environmental degradations that it's the least protected that will suffer. Polystyrene cannot be effectively recycled. I don't understand why we're talking about whether it can be recycled, whether there is a market for it, when we know that other materials can be recycled and there is a market for the other ones. Why do we need to experiment? We also know that polystyrene is poison. I want to say that a common corporate ploy is to pit environment against jobs. That is to say, if we go a certain way, there'll be economic circumstances. Almost every environmental measure actually has positive impacts on the economy, just in the same sense that if we move to renewable energy, we'll create more jobs than the regressive measure to try to prop up coal. This is a regressive bill. It's going backwards at a time when the people need your protection. I urge you to reject this bill.
Thank you for your testimony.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Melissa Yashan, and I am a senior staff attorney in the Environmental Justice Program at New York Lawyers for the Public Interest. I would like to thank Chair Reynoso and the other council members here for giving me the opportunity to speak. New York Lawyers for the Public Interest has been working for many years along with community partners to address the disparate burdens of waste on a few communities here in the city. We are deeply concerned that Intro 1480 will have negative consequences in those communities for our city's laudable zero waste goals and on our natural resources and environment. NYLPE strongly opposes Intro 1480 and instead supports legislation that would ban polystyrene foam food and beverage containers. As you've already heard from many of my esteemed colleagues and partners, Intro 1480 is both misinformed and misleading. Polystyrene foam should absolutely not be defined as recyclable under city law when it cannot practically be recycled. To label this material as recyclable would have serious environmental and public health repercussions, to say nothing of further eroding the faith in the city's recycling system. This bill will also likely increase the amount of polystyrene that we see in our communities and in our waste stream. Currently, polystyrene now represents less than 2% of our waste stream. By deeming it recyclable, both food service providers and consumers may think it's not only benign to use, but somehow beneficial, and this potentially toxic material will again proliferate in our city. As you have heard, this is dangerous to the environment, to public health, and to communities overburdened by waste. In addition, consuming hot beverages or food from polystyrene has been shown to be risky to humans for the possibility of ingesting the styrene, a known carcinogen. And of course, like so many other environmental threats, the communities who would bear the brunt of this will likely be our city's low-income communities. The types of quick service food vendors and food carts who used to rely on this cheap material and will likely be the first to once again begin serving food and beverages out of it are often located in our lower income communities of color, where families and children will once again be exposed to the risks associated with serving hot food and drink in polystyrene. Finally, increasing this portion of our waste stream also means sending even more garbage to the three most overburdened communities who already take more than 75% of our New York City's waste. This means more trucks in and more trucks out, releasing more fumes into the air in neighborhoods where children suffer from asthma almost 2 times more than their Manhattan counterparts. So as you see, the problem with designating polystyrene as recyclable are not few and are not small. You are hearing from so many of us because we stand together in saying that this, plainly speaking, is a terrible idea. A much more pragmatic solution would be to ban polystyrene entirely. In fact, that legislative effort has begun, and we believe that we can unite in moving that forward and move our city towards a cleaner, healthier, more equitable, and sustainable tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Chair Reynoso and the rest of the committee. I'd like to say if Eric is a tree hugger, I'm a fish hugger. I would like to take the opportunity to testify on against this ill-advised legislation on behalf of Riverkeeper's thousands of members and supporters. My name is Jeremy Cherson. I have a master's in environmental policy from Bard College. Through advocacy, prevention, and community education and stewardship, Riverkeeper is working towards realizing the vision of a trash-free Hudson River. Our annual day of service, the Riverkeeper Sweep, engages thousands of New Yorkers from Brooklyn to the Adirondacks at over 100 sites to clean up our shorelines and waterways. Each year, polystyrene constitutes a major source of the marine debris our Riverkeeper Sweep volunteers clean up. At our May 6, 2017 sweep, polystyrene pollution was the most common item found at 22% of our 101 sites. At our 2016 shoreline cleanup, polystyrene was the most common debris found at 26% of our 109 sites. Our direct experience with polystyrene on our shorelines necessitates our advocacy to eliminate polystyrene pollution in the Hudson River estuary. The industry-backed bill, Intro 1480, seeking to require New Yorkers to recycle a product where recycling is not feasible, is misguided and would steer New York City in the wrong direction of its zero-waste goals. You heard from Commissioner Garcia, so I won't go through that, but over 100 other local governments in the United States agree with Commissioner Garcia and have passed ordinances restricting or prohibiting the use of polystyrene, including Ulster County here in New York State. Riverkeeper encourages the City Council to follow in the footsteps of local governments across the country and take action to eliminate polystyrene from the waste stream. Cost-effective, affordable, and environmentally responsible alternatives exist. Taking action to phase out polystyrene will protect wildlife, reduce marine pollution, and improve the quality of life for New Yorkers. I appreciate the opportunity to testify, and I hope the council and committee will forcefully reject Intro 1480.
Thank you for your testimony.
Good afternoon and thank you. My name is Kelly Lester. I'm a student at NYU School of Law and I'm a resident of New York City. This semester I participated in NYU's Environmental Law Clinic where I researched EPS bans across the country and I researched the validity and viability of curbside recycling programs in some of the largest cities in the nation. I'm here today to share with you what I found, which has led me to oppose this recycling bill. My research showed that not one of the 30 largest cities in the country has an effective curbside recycling program for EPS food containers. I examined the curbside recycling policies of each of these cities, and only San Antonio, Texas even purports to accept EPS food containers in their curbside program. However, when I contacted Community Recycling, which processes San Antonio's recycling, I was informed that while they accept the food containers, they're not able to actually recycle the collected EPS because nobody is willing to buy it. I also checked out Denver, Colorado's recycling policy, and contrary to a previous speaker's assertion, Denver, Colorado does not accept polystyrene foam for recycling, and if you're interested, you can check out their government website. In other words, the only large city that even attempts to recycle EPS food containers is not able to do so since there's no market for the dirty foam they collected. Also, some cities that have banned polystyrene have demonstrated positive economic results as a result of switching over to recyclable and compostable containers because they're able to actually sell the compost that results. I also contacted several of the facilities listed on DART Containers website as actually accepting EPS food containers for recycling, and a lot of these facilities no longer accept them. They said that they previously attempted to accept these materials, but there's an insufficient market, and so they're not able to. I contacted Plastics Recycling Inc., the company that DART Container has cited repeatedly as being able to accept New York City's EPS waste for recycling, and I was informed by a representative that they do not yet accept EPS food containers for recycling, and that they're working on developing a process to recycle them, but they do not, as of yet, have any proven system up and running. And so my research made it abundantly clear that recycling of polystyrene food, foam, and beverage containers has not been proven to be feasible in any large city, and is thus unlikely to be feasible in New York City, and a ban is the preferred alternative to many of these large cities because it has been proven to actually eliminate polystyrene foam food waste. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you to this panel, and I think we're moving on to the next panel, so thank you guys very much.
Just want to say it's nice to see some of the band back together.
Yeah, I know.
These are a lot of the folks that did the plastic bag bill, and are going to do it again, too.
Robin Cantor.
She was on the first panel.
Yeah, so was William Goodfellow.
Okay, all right.
Not David Brooke. I believe David Brooke from Pact 4 or Pactive, I'm sorry. Gary Frederick. David Wilson.
How many is that, 4?
That's 3. Mike Levy from American Chemistry Council on Plastics, Food Service, and Packaging Group, and Walter Ryder from EPS Industry Alliance. All right. Oh, there's some folks in the next room that are coming through. Okay.
Rhonda Kaiser?
No.
She's a constituent, so I
All
wouldn't
right.
have noticed.
No, there's a Robin Cantor, yes. It's okay. Did you get called up? Yeah, go. Yeah, drop it off there and then come straight. You got a seat waiting for you there. No problem. Okay, and We're trying to do our best to keep it under 2 minutes. If you go slightly over, I'm going to ask you to, just conclude your statements. Thank you very much, and whenever you're ready.
Here. Better? Ah, yes. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to testify today in support, in our case, of Bill 1840, which would, as we've all discussed today, add polystyrene foam to the curbside recycling. My name is Dave Brook, and I'm the Director of Regulatory Affairs at Pactiv. Pactiv is one of the world's largest, and I'm proud to say best, food service packaging companies. We manufacture all types of food packaging. Not just foam polystyrene, but all the different plastics, paper, aluminum, and so forth. We have over 50 manufacturing facilities located throughout the world. However, our largest one is in upstate New York. Located in Canandaigua, which is between Syracuse and Rochester, we employ almost 800 skilled full-time and part-time employees. It makes us the second largest employer in Ontario County. In our part of the state, that's a lot of jobs, and very critically needed jobs. We've seen over the past several decades that as the economy improves and becomes more resilient in areas like New York City, our communities in upstate New York have been faced with an out-migration of jobs, and along with that go the friends and the family. So it's a tough environment in certain parts of the state, and that's where we operate. In 2013, Pactiv came here to testify about how the proposed foam ban would potentially take jobs from New York, sending them overseas. Also testified on how it could have a major impact on our employees, the communities that we operate in, our suppliers, and just not bode well for Pactiv in upstate New York. It seems that since then our voice has been heard, and for that we'd like to say thank you. Thank you to the council members, the staff, and all those who took the time to learn the real facts, and that being that foam polystyrene is cost effective, it is safe, and is capable of and in fact recycled. In closing, I would like to reiterate that moving from a ban to a curbside recycling program isn't just good for businesses like ours, it's good for your consumers, your constituents, and their businesses within the city. Thank you very much for your time today, and we support Bill 1840. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Is this on? Yes, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Mike Levy. I'm the director for the Plastics Food Service Packaging Group, and we represent all makers of all different plastics food service, including polystyrene foam. While I'm based in Washington, D.C., I grew up just north of the Hudson here, so I'm also supportive of the bill, and also want to let you know that you would be adding to Madison County, New York, and Yonkers, who currently does recycled polystyrene foam. So it is being done in certain parts here. In the less than 2 minutes that I have here, I'd like to address some of the misperceptions that you've really heard today in a couple of areas. One is on litter, and one is on health and safety. In particular on litter, like anyone, we do not want littered products in the ocean and the rivers, and we go to great lengths to try to support programs that do that. But we also have done studies, and the amount of polystyrene foam food service in litter, according to national studies that look at about something like 240 cities, is 1.5%. You've heard numbers of 38 and 100 or whatever it is. It is a small part. This is polystyrene foam. The other thing, too, with all due respect to Commissioner Garcia, we've looked at the Riverkeeper or the Baykeeper study, and the amount of polystyrene microplastics that they've gotten so far, according to the independent, is microscopic, not 38%. But we can argue numbers all the way around. I will tell you that we agree that litter shouldn't be there, and we've got programs to kind of reduce that. But the other thing is, San Francisco was mentioned as one of the cities that banned polystyrene foam. What wasn't mentioned was in 2006 when they banned it, they were the only city to really take a look to see if it made a difference. A couple years later, they did a San Francisco street audit in 2008. And what they proved was exactly what we've said before, is that when you substitute one product for another, if you don't to clean up the environment, you'll actually just increase litter. And that's exactly what happened. the substituted products item by item for paper cups and plates and bowls actually increased in San Francisco. Just wasn't polystyrene, it was something else. So again, litter's behavior, but no one really wants to get at it. And finally, on the issue of styrene and polystyrene, a lot of people confuse the two. Styrene is a liquid, and polystyrene, of course, is a solid material. The people that say that styrene is a suspected carcinogen, health and safety agencies like the NTP basically have said when it comes to polystyrene, there is no health and safety problem. And the answer is, for 50 years, the Food and Drug Administration regulates not just polystyrene, but all food service. No one has ever gotten sick or ill from a foam cup or clamshell or anything like that, but you'll hear people saying that styrene's toxicity. Styrene is not the issue here.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We're in support of the bill.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Gentlemen, thank you for allowing me to speak with you this afternoon. It's an honor. I want to give you some statistics about what I do with my company I work for. But first, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. My name's David Wilson. I've been an employee of RAPAC for 24 years. Pretty much my career is centered around polystyrene and expandable polystyrene. Years and years ago, I was given the opportunity to help develop the business and just given free reins by the ownership of find cost-saving measures. We want to be on the cutting edge of technology. And I went directly into the recycled markets and started to help and develop them. The densifier process for expandable polystyrene, I've been instrumental in developing that over the years. That's one of the keys of being able to transport EPS at an affordable price, is condensing it from less than 1 pound density to about 30 pounds per cubic foot density. It's equipment, it's technology. I've also been able to see PRI's process, which I'm very interested in, because I would like to use some of the material from that process. It's cutting edge. RAPAC has been a recycler for 30 years. We have recycled over 50 million pounds of EPS and PS. In 2017, we're slated to produce 32 million pounds of use 32 million pounds of resin. Out of that, 90% of what we will buy or recycle will be recycled content. Out of that 90%, 14% will be post-consumer, or 4.5 million pounds. So to say that you can't recycle post-consumer EPS and PS is a lie. I'm doing it. I welcome you to look at our website and come to Oakland, Tennessee to see our process. I'll show it to you firsthand. We are a major player and want to see it grow. I vote yes and ask that you vote yes to approve the measure.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman, council members. My name is Walter Ryder. I'm the Deputy Director of the EPS Industry Alliance. I was very pleased to get 2 mentions today, first from Commissioner Garcia, and I had an opportunity to give her my card so that she can follow up with me, and I can actually probably correct the information that one of her staffers gave her about our organization. And then I was also got a mention from the former commissioner. He had mentioned a Alliance of Foam Package Recyclers, which has been merged to the EPS Industry Alliance. We are the North American Trade Association representing rigid foam insulation and the protective packaging. We are extremely supportive and excited about this legislation because this will help us continue to grow and promote our efforts to establish recycling of the protective packaging. Now, the one thing that you really need to focus on is diversion. And the gentleman from Wave Riders came up here and was talking about diversion. This will drive diversion, and this will help us in our efforts to keep this out of the landfills. There was also some mention about Canada and what's going on up there, and Commissioner Garcia had indicated a failed project from 2004 or so. Now, Canada is a little bit, and the provinces are a little bit ahead of New York in their zero waste goals. And they have some pretty strong legislation that's kind of motivating and driving those efforts to keep the material out of the landfill. But if you take a look at our website, and I'm sorry I tried to focus on New York in anticipation, but we have the same resource that would show you what's going on in Canada, Vancouver, Quebec, Kingston's been mentioned. A lot of it, there's some good push from the government encouraging it to stay out of the landfills, and that is helping a phenomenal amount. And this legislation will also help. And the other thing I wanted to correct from Commissioner Garcia, and this is off of our website, we do have close by Shelter Enterprises in Cohoes, Thermal Foams in Cicero, Polar Industries, Prospect, Connecticut, Sunoco, Putnam, Connecticut. There's about 4 or 5 others. And these are places that are accepting EPS and making it into new EPS because of provisions, say, in LEAD v4 and things like that. There is a push to have recycled content material, and this material is coming back into these plants post-consumer, thrown into the grinder, made into products, made into lightweight fill, EPS geofoam projects and things like that. So this would be a huge push for us, and it would be an awesome opportunity to really move towards that zero waste and keep it out of the landfills, and we strongly support 1480.
I'll make it quick. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Gary Frederick. I'm president of Princeton Molding Group. I'm here today to testify in support of Intro 1480, the addition of EPS to the city-wide curbside recycling program. First, I want to thank the members of the City Council Sanitation Committee for holding this very important meeting. My company is located in central New Jersey, just a mere 40 miles south of New York City. We are a manufacturer of high-quality EPS moldings for the furniture, picture frame, and architectural markets. Our moldings contain approximately 98% recycled EPS. We began manufacturing these products in 2006, and despite some of what I have heard here today, EPS is highly recyclable. The issue for me isn't can we recycle EPS, because we do that every day. The issue is, can we get enough of it to grow our industry, manufacturing? 10 years ago, when we started manufacturing molding, we actually had to import recycled EPS from Korea. As MCS said earlier, they had to import it from Japan. Over time, the recycled EPS markets have improved, but we still need more here in the United States. I'm here today to express my strong support for Intro 1480. Recycling EPS will help grow jobs and is an investment in our economy. We commend the sponsors for this thoughtful and progressive legislation and urge the City Council to pass it into law. Thank you for your opportunity to speak, and I can take any questions.
All right, thank you guys very much. We'll call the next panel Rhonda Kaiser and Debbie Lee Cohen from Cafeteria Culture, Thomas Gorman Riley from Civitas, Judith Weiss from Trash Free Waters Partnership, Akila Simon, Guardians of Flushing Bay, and Edith Kantrowitz, New York City Friends of Clearwater and United for Action. I think I called about 17. 1, 2, 3. I think I called 6 but 5 cards, but one had 2 people. So maybe not everyone is here. I see Rhonda, so Rhonda, come on up. I called Rhonda Kaiser, Debbie Lee Cohen, Thomas Riley, Judith Weiss, Akila Simon, and Edith Kantrowitz. If they're in the other rooms. Okay. All right. We got a good panel here. Fair enough.
Yeah, Christopher Chin, Greg Todd. We were hanging the other day. There you go. He was there. Brooklyn Swab. And that's 5. That's 5. That's 5. That's 5. Sorry. We're going through it faster, so patience. Folks are... So please, in any order that you see fit.
something? Okay, thank you. I'm a vice president of Civitas Citizens Inc., and it's a not-for-profit organization established in 1981. It's dedicated to improvement of neighborhood life in East Harlem and the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And our main areas of interest are land use, public transportation, streetscape, and the environment. During the past 15 years, an important focus of our environmental program has been solid waste management and recycling. To that end, we have encouraged recycling and composting in various public schools in our communities. We have sought to introduce recycling to the New York City Housing Authority sites in East Harlem, and we have promoted better recycling and composting practices in apartment buildings. Civitas opposes the designation of dirty EPS as a recyclable for these reasons. First, the recycling of EPS is not economically feasible, and I think we went over this prior testimony, so I'm not going to dwell on that. Secondly, it is not possible to efficiently recycle EPS either. And as we've heard, no major city in the United States has undertaken to do this, and we are asked in New York City to roll the dice with this private company that will have a great deal to profit from it. There's no question about that. And its investment in a captive company that's going to process it according to a program that should give profits is a dream that perhaps we share, but until something better comes along, we need to have, as taxpayers, a better understanding of it. Third, the continued use of EPS, whether recycled or not, presents significant health and environmental problems. For this reason, we urge you strongly to vote no on proposed intro number 1480. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you for having the hearing and inviting me. Judith Weiss, I'm a professor emerita at Rutgers University. I've spent my career studying marine pollution. Among other things, I've published over 100 papers and 2 books about marine pollution. I want to talk to you about microplastics. These are tiny particles of plastic that are super abundant in the waters and on the beaches. And these plastic tiny pieces are eaten by small animals like plankton, like larval fish, like filter-feeding mollusks such as oysters and clams. These particles have been shown to damage the digestive system of larval fish, injure the intestines because they may, they're hard, and also to cause liver damage. The particles act as sponges for contaminants in the environment. So it's not only that these particles themselves can cause damage, but there are toxic chemicals that are in the water, certainly around our harbors, and they attach onto the plastics and serve to be a way of getting these contaminants through the food chain. When we eat mussels or clams or oysters, we are eating microplastics. Where do microplastics come from? There was some in facial scrubs. That's been outlawed federally over a year ago. There's some come out of clothing and laundry, but another major source is bigger pieces of plastic that break up. And what kind of plastic breaks up the fastest and the most is foam, is polystyrene foam. So polystyrene foam turns into microplastics much faster than other kinds of plastics and contributes more to this issue of microplastics in the food chain. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Hello. I'm Rhonda Kaiser, and I'm with Cafeteria Culture. I'm here speaking on behalf of Debbie Lee Cohen, who's the Executive Director and founder of Cafeteria Culture. We are a nonprofit environmental education organization. We're originally called Styrofoam Out of Schools. Check. That's done. We work creatively to achieve zero-waste schools and climate-smart communities, and we engage our students as our partners in change, merging citizen science and civic action with media and arts education. We primarily work with students in low-income neighborhoods who are on the front lines of the ill effects of climate change and who suffer the scourge of street litter that becomes deadly marine pollution. Just as a quick note, I want to remind everyone that in our partnership with the Department of Education School Food Directors, we catalyze the complete elimination of 860,000 polystyrene trays in New York City public schools every single day. We did it by we collectively did it by teaming up with the 5 other largest urban school food districts in the country and eliminated 500 million polystyrene foam trays annually. Now today we've talked a lot about the difficulties and the institutional feasibility of polystyrene in our waste system. What we do these days with our students is they are taking the lead to reduce local plastic street litter through citizen science surveys, collecting data, and through community outreach to share with their neighbors and friends, each one teach one. Councilmember Cabrera, since people littering is a big issue of yours, maybe you can come to one of our classes. One of our 3rd to 8th graders could probably teach you a little bit about the data they've collected about where street litter comes from. And I'm sure that since you are such a proponent of this, that maybe you're going to allocate some funds for litter education in your discretionary funding.
Can I address that, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I would love for you guys to apply next year for funding. I don't think you applied this year, but I would love to do that. I would love to go for the visit. I do want to let you know I was the author of the school environmental bill. I joined with Brad Lander for the plastic bag. I've been there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you. My name is Christopher Chin, and I am the Executive Director at CORE, the Center for Oceanic Awareness, Research, and Education. I'm originally from New York, but I currently live in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I'd like to take just a moment to go back to our previous panel and mention that we're actually very proud of our polystyrene ban there. Our EPS ban is incredibly effective, and we are extremely proud of it, and it is extremely effective. So I could speak to you as an ocean conservationist, as a public policy expert, but I'm going to talk to you about as somebody from New York, somebody who's born and raised in New York. We're a discerning bunch. We know that if it falls off the back of a truck, it probably doesn't come with a warranty. We know that the Rolexes in Times Square don't keep good time, and we are probably not going to buy a bridge anytime soon. So that's why it would be a shame and it would be an embarrassment if this committee and the council that it represents were to fall for some of the rhetoric that you're hearing today. Expanded polystyrene is not functionally or realistically recyclable. If it were, don't you think that more cities would be doing it? EPS is an amazing product. It is lightweight, it is a great insulator, but then again, so was asbestos. When we find things that don't work anymore or we need to move past them, then we just simply need to find new solutions. And polystyrene, expanded polystyrene, most certainly is not the time. We don't have time for that anymore. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this on? Yes, it's on, yeah. Hi, I'm Greg Todd, and I'm representing the Brooklyn Solid Waste Advisory Board. And I've submitted some written testimony that we firmly oppose this intro. But our testimony replicates a lot of what we heard, and I think there's something that I've discovered that's actually very important to bring out. Following up on Chairman Reynoso's observation that asking one of the speakers about the half-life of plastic. And I don't know if she asked that in jest, but I think the implication was it flustered the speaker to the point that there probably isn't a half-life for plastics. And I would like to quote from a report written by the Elaine MacArthur Foundation about a year ago, pointing out that by 2050, they project there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. In fact, she projects out of 311 million tons of plastic generated this year, 5% will be recycled, even if it can be recycled. 40% will be in landfills or incinerated. 1/3 of all plastic will end up in the oceans. Now, you may say we can put wood in the oceans, wood breaks down. Glass becomes sand. Metal can eventually be reverted back to more metal. But plastic, there's nothing in the natural environment that degrades plastic. It simply persists indefinitely. A single use that you use for 30 seconds to take home your burger in a clamshell will persist in the environment for an indefinite period of time and probably end up in the oceans, or at least a third of that material will end up in the oceans. So why would you use something, why would you create something that's going to be used once for 30 seconds that will last forever? The question I still find perplexing, and I submit that as my final. Thank you.
Thank you, and it's great to have the Brooklyn Swab here too, representing Brooklyn. Thank you for this panel, and we're making good progress. I'm very proud of everyone, both sides. Dr. George Cruzan. Sorry. Fred DeFazio. I'm really bad with names, obviously, guys. Darren Suarez. Clark Peña. There he is. Diane Sanders. Miss Sanders. Okay, she's back there, too.
You're supposed to sit the way I call that. I'm different, so I'll sit on the end.
Yeah, it's a full panel. We got more than 5 people? Okay, you're a team. You could. But if you guys can, if you just take this chair right here on the left, let's get a comfortable chair. You could just. Not yet. You got to get elected. You know how hard Councilmember Cabrera worked to be on one of these chairs?
They only knew.
how hard he continues to work. There you go. Exactly. Okay, you want to start on this side? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we'll start with me. Hi. Okay. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the Council, and thank you for letting us testify today. We'd just like to, on behalf of GenPAC, in support of Intro 1480, which would add EPS to the citywide curbside recycling program. Kevin and myself are owners of Creative Sales and Marketing, which is a manufacturer's rep group, and we represent GenPAC in the New York metro area. GenPAC is a leading manufacturer in plastic food service packaging industry, making a wide variety of food containers, plates, bowls, and platters that are used in food service applications. Our company has been a fixture in Middletown, New York for over 40 years, an area like much of upstate starved for jobs and investment. Over the past 30 years, manufacturers like GenPAC have become increasingly rare in upstate New York. Overall, 1.2 million fewer people were employed in manufacturing in New York State in 2014 than in 1970. While upstate communities realized a smaller percentage decrease in manufacturing employment than in the New York metro area, they were more dependent on manufacturing. As a result, the loss of manufacturing jobs throughout upstate did more economic harm to them than the losses in the New York City area.
That is why we stood so strongly against the proposed ban on EPS. The ban would likely have resulted in significant layoffs and endangered the viability of our plant long term if other markets were not added to replace the New York City losses. In addition, a ban would negatively impact and raise costs for the small business who rely on our products. We applaud and strongly support efforts by members of the City Council to advance legislation to add EPS to the city's existing curbside recycling program. Polystyrene is 100% recyclable and is already recycled commercially in cities, big and small, across the nation and the globe. For instance, more than 65 communities in California alone have curbside collection to recycle polystyrene foam. Polystyrene is safe, recyclable, and cost-effective. We commend the sponsors for your thoughtful and progressive legislation and urge the City Council to pass it into law. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Chairman Reynoso, council members, thank you for your time.
Be careful, Clark. Be very careful with what you're going to say next.
Absolutely. You can bleep it. Bleep it out.
I hear you. I hear you.
My name is Clark Pena, and I am a independent contractor. I have a program that I host called The Advocates Corner with yours truly, Clark Pena. Get that plug in. And today I'm here in behalf of the New York City Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I am a member of the chamber for 13 years. We have our upcoming Nick Lugo Festival very soon. I run their security and all that other good stuff. So, come see me for the wristbands. Our mission at the chamber is to represent and advocate for Hispanic businesses in New York City in a cohesive and collective way. We work on assuring the success of Hispanic businesses and the community they serve. Our dedicated team consists of thinkers, planners, and most importantly, doers. That is passionate about economic growth and development of our Hispanic community. So, respectfully, on behalf of our president, Nick Lugo, the chamber supports 1480, 1480, the intro. We think leaders of this great city, including the environmental advocates, should ask themselves, is there a company willing to pick up foam from your doorstep at no cost to the consumer of our city? And would it save millions annually for our city? Why not recycle? Recycling is progressive. Foam is recyclable. I personally stand in favor of 1480. My program stands in favor of 1480. The New York City Hispanic Chamber of Commerce stands for 1480. Let's move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Clark.
Good evening and thank you. I'm here in support of 1480. I'm Diane Sanders and I'm representing Black Jewel Catering. And I'm just echoing some of what my colleagues have spoke on. As a small business owner, I provide food and service for the faith community for over 15 years. I'm here to urge the progressive leaders in the City Council to pass Intro 1480 immediately. Foam containers are the lifeblood of ethnic restaurants and are used by catering halls every Sundays throughout the churches around the country. Foam products are among the most versatile and economically disposable items available. Small businesses are hurting and entrepreneurs are crying out for help to ease the financial burdens we face buying products and goods and operating our businesses every day. If the city moves to a foam recycling program, we could save thousands of disposable costs. I think leaders of this great city, including environmental advocates, should step up to do the right thing and pass Intro 1480 now because it's sensible legislation and it benefits all our communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Let me start by thanking the members of the committee for holding such an important hearing. I'm Darren Suarez of the Business Council of the State of New York to express our support for Intro 1480, progressive legislation that would establish curbside collection for polystyrene foam recycling. The Business Council is the leading business organization in the state of New York, representing the interests of businesses statewide. Over 75% of our members are small businesses, and many of which are located right here in New York City. For decades, the restaurant industry in New York City has been a driving entrepreneurial force, generating tremendous revenue for the city, state, and creating jobs that build futures for families and for all communities. In 2014, restaurants contributed more than $35 billion to the state and employed about 9% of the overall workforce. More and more, we're hearing from small business owners, especially restaurant owners, that their sheer costs of doing businesses here, from increasing labor costs, rising regulations, and the cost of goods, are making it harder and harder for small businesses to survive. Over the past year, the restaurant industry saw a 6% decline. The Business Council believes that working together, we can help small employers who mean so much to our economy and address environmental concerns, and that is why we support Intro 1480. As you are aware, 1480 will amend the Administrative Code of New York City. Similar steps have been taken by other municipalities. Madison County in upstate New York in 2016 began a pilot foam recycling program. And under their program, Madison County Department of Solid Waste Management and Solid Waste has collected foam and then demystified the foam. After a successful start to the program, Madison County's Department of Solid Waste has continued the program. And the recycling coordinator, Mary Bartlett, who recently quoted as saying it can be a moneymaker too. And I've quoted anywhere saying from 18 to 38 cents a pound compared to pennies for textiles. In conclusion, members of the business community are here to commit it to the development of polystyrene recycle program, such as the one that 1480 establishes.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. George Cruzan. I've been a professional toxicologist for 41 years. I have been studying styrene and leading an extensive styrene research program for the last 28 years. So I do know a few things about styrene and polystyrene. A couple of people have said that polystyrene is toxic. That's not true. Polystyrene never gets absorbed. If you ingest polystyrene, it just passes right on through. It has no impact. Styrene, on the other hand, if it is the monomer it's made from, if that's ingested or inhaled, it gets absorbed, mostly gets metabolized and passed out. Styrene is everywhere. It's in the air, it's in your food. Lots of foods make styrene. If you want to get rid of styrene exposure, you ban coffee, you ban cinnamon, you ban beer, you ban nuts, and you've gone a long way. The biggest exposure is just atmospheric styrene. If you were to ban polystyrene foam altogether, or completely eliminate polystyrene foam, you would only reduce styrene exposure, styrene exposure by less than 5%. So styrene is not a health effect. It has a 5,000-fold margin of safety over EPA's limit that they suggested is safe for people, and it's about 10,000-fold over the limit that's set by FDA for exposure to styrene. Thank you.
Thank you for that information.
Can I just say a couple more
I'll
things
give you
real quick?
his 15 seconds that he left over.
Okay, that's fine.
You go.
I just want to say, listen, I've been in the packaging industry for almost 40 years, and I've seen this come and go with foam and everything else. But there were some misstatements made today from some of these people that were testifying. We're talking about the compostables. They're saying that it's only a few pennies more than what foam would cost. That's not true, because a lot of the compostables that are being made today are being made overseas, just because of capacity here, and we just don't have the amount of capacity. And the other thing is, where are the compost sites? I don't think every New Yorker has a compost in their apartment or in their backyard, and that's part of the other problem that you have. You don't have anybody collecting the compostables either. So just some facts I wanted you to know.
Yeah, we're collecting organics now.
I'm just saying.
Just saying. Not commercial. I'm talking about. But remember, this recycling is also, you said commercial. Commercial. This is going to be residential recycling, right? Not commercial recycling. So you're still going to have to pay the private carder to take your trash out, right? So just to be mindful of that this is for residential pickup. This is the white trucks, not any other truck. But I really appreciate you guys taking the time to be here and for being one of the later panels and hanging in there. Thank you. Thank you. So the entire crowd that's left is in the building, is in the room. So this is Jordan Christensen from City. Yep, Christensen. Isabel Silverman. Yep, from EDF. Genesis Abreu from WEAC. Celine Shah from Citizens Committee for NYC, and Margaret Conte from The Planet. Where's Jordan? Yeah, they got everyone. This is.
We started. I think. Yeah, you should start.
All right. I guess we're all taking it from your right. So go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Isaac Jordan. My name is Isaac Jordan, and I'm president of the Sustainable Crown Heights, a citizen community committee organization that focuses on finding environmentally sustainable solutions to issues in our community, such as litter, pest control, neighborhood beautification, and energy consumption. We tackle neighborhood challenges from building a network of community gardens to holding developers and companies responsible for the products they are using in our community. On behalf of my organization, I'm here to voice full support for Intro 1480. This bill is forward-looking and should be adopted immediately. By establishing a program to recycle 100% of that we use, leaders like yourselves will help keep our streets clean and pass on the savings to many Black, Latino, and Asian American restaurants that rely on foam every day. You're going to hear expert testimony on the fact that foam has been recycled for more than 2 decades, and I can tell you that there's a great map on the website homeforfoam.com that lists all the locations across the globe for drop-off and curbside pickup of foam. The technology is only improving and the markets for foam are expanding. Sustainable Crown Heights also believes that the bill will help the mayor develop the city initiative in progressive goals of eliminating waste under the One New York program. Recycling foam would cut down the solid waste that is shipped to landfills and carted off, or waste that ends up in our city blocks. Foam replaces such as paper cups 5 times the amount of solid waste and are more expensive. I know firsthand that foam can be made usable consumer products for some of the students from our focus events. Now it's time for environmentalists to go forward and float claims that are false and not helpful to our goals of taking care of our environment.
Thank you for your testimony.
Good afternoon, members of the committee, Chair Reynoso, and the esteemed council members. My name is Genesis Abreu, and I am the bilingual community organizer for We Act for Environmental Justice. We Act as a community-based organization that serves West Harlem, Central Harlem, East Harlem, Washington Heights, and Inwood. And I'm here today to testify against Intro 1480, which would require recycling of polystyrene foam in the city's recycling program. We Act supports NRDC and other groups across the city that call for a ban to the use of polystyrene foam in beverage and food containers. As been stated throughout the day, this white foam is a brittle material that breaks into tiny pieces when discarded. As a result, foam, coffee cups, and food clamshells litter our streets and parks and enter our waterways, and that is exactly what we're seeing in northern Manhattan. We already see a lower diversion rate of recyclable materials than other areas across the borough. And according to the annual report for the New York City curbside and containerized municipal refuse and recycling statistics for the fiscal year 2016, the percentage of recyclables diverted from landfills each day in District 9, 10, 11, and 12 are just 17%, 14%, 11%, and 16% respectively. In comparison, the Upper West Side and Upper East Side see roughly 26% of recyclables diverted from landfills each day. one can only imagine where these recyclables are being redirected to in the communities where we serve and I have been a lifelong community member of. These are our streets, our parks, and our waterways. And that is why we strongly believe that an additional recycling program will not be sufficient to address this issue and that a ban on the use of this material is the best alternative. Please do not support Intro 1480 and call on a ban of using this material instead. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, Honorable Chair, Council members. My name is Celine Shaw. I am the Director of Communications and Public Affairs at Citizens Committee for New York City. Many of you have heard of us. I'm so happy to testify today since so many people who are not New Yorkers have come in and to testify. So thank you so much for having me. Part of our mission is to fund volunteer group initiatives comprised completely of ordinary New Yorkers with grants, especially in the most underserved parts of the city. Today, 60% of the 400 or so projects we fund each year have directly to do with these special New Yorkers, working in clusters of volunteer groups, protecting our urban environment through community and school improvement projects, and beautifying many of the city's most polluted communities, eventually making them safer as well. Among the current sponsors of Intro 1480, Citizens Committee has devoted its neighborhood grant resources, these are cash grants for neighborhood and school improvement projects, environmental projects, to 460 grassroots groups and volunteer groups working in their districts over the past 3 years alone. More specifically, the primary focus of 276 of these grassroots initiatives is environmental pollution, environmental justice, and neighborhood beautification. We recommend that the City Council take the sensible step of getting rid of polystyrene foam, food and beverage containers like communities around the nation from San Francisco to Washington, D.C. have already done. At Citizens Committee, we like recycling, but there is no real market for dirty polystyrene cups and clamshells in New York. No big city around the nation has successfully implemented a recycling program for dirty foam. I just want to add two more questions of the committee and the council. You know, are disposable products here to stay? Are you going to tell your kids that when they ask you, hey, Dad, Mom, are they here to stay for my lifetime, for the next lifetime, for my grandkids? That's one question to ask. And also, I've heard this word progressive being hijacked. And let's pay attention to language. What is progressive? What would Donald Trump vote for? Just do the opposite.
I just want to say, full disclosure, before I was in the council, before I worked in the council, I actually cleaned up a garden in my neighborhood, and it was through the help of Citizens Committee for NYC. So thank you for the great work that you guys do. And that garden was a disaster.
And in the early 90s, We Act got their first grant from us. So thank God for We Act.
Thank you, guys.
And I give him fun also to Citizens Committee.
Full disclosure, but you are a fan of the environment. So.
They're looking to convince you, Fernando.
Yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Was there polystyrene in that garden that you cleaned up?
Yeah, of course there was polystyrene. There were other things that were much worse than that in that garden, but now it's a beautiful place where people get to gather and enjoy the community, so it's awesome.
So my name is Isabel Silverman. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, Chairperson and Council members. I'm giving this testimony on behalf of Rory Christian, who is the Director of New York Clean Energy at Environmental Defense Fund. You're probably familiar with EDF already. We have over 2 million members and 35,000 here in the city. EDF is quite well known for its partnership with McDonald's in the 1990s. So McDonald's had those clamshells, those polystyrene clamshells that were not very popular for the reasons we just heard today. So EDF worked with McDonald's to replace them with paper and cardboard, and it was a very successful program. They had a reduction of waste between 70 and 90%, and they saved McDonald's $6 million a year by moving away from those clamshells. And the restaurant customers also appreciated the more environmentally friendly products. And they recycled 1 million tons of corrugated boxes and reduced restaurant waste by 30% with this partnership with Environmental Defense Fund. In the interest of time, I just want to, even if we take everything that industry today said at face value, and that's true, it still doesn't make the problem go away that we have this polystyrene in our waterways, in our environment, like Councilmember Cabrera said, people just throw things. They will still do that. So even if 16% of the polystyrene waste will end up being recycled, it's just not solving the problem. The product is not a good product, and that's why EDF is advocating for a ban. And then also what the commissioner said, the polystyrene pollutes other recyclables. And I think that's very disturbing. So there's a polystyrene cup now within the paper, and then she said, now we can't recycle the paper anymore. So it's not only contaminating our environment, but it's contaminating the recyclables we already have, and that we actually need to get an increase in recyclable rates. So also, if we move to other materials like paper and compostable paper, it will reduce the price of these, like the schools did move to the compostable trays. And just lastly, the half-life, that wasn't answered. I know somebody else brought it up. You actually used the term correctly. It goes for any specific property, and the question is how, when is it decreased by half? Polystyrene stays for hundreds of years in the environment, is not considered biodegradable. This is why this is a material of the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Sorry.
Hi, I'm Jordan Christensen. I'm with Citizens Campaign for the Environment. And in the interest of time, I don't want to repeat everything everyone said. I just want to make the point that I feel like a lot of this debate about recyclable versus non-recyclable is sort of, not seeing the forest for the trees. Of course, CCE does not think that the polystyrene containers that have been used for food and are already dirty have a viable market for recycling. But even more than that, we're sort of having this deja vu debate, same thing that we had with the plastic microbeads and the personal care products, the same one we had with plastic bags, where we know that these are sort of unnecessary plastic pollutants. They end up in our water. They break into microplastics. They attract toxins like pesticides and PCBs. They work their way up the food chain onto our dinner plates. And in a lot of ways, polystyrene is actually the worst of all of these offenders. We know that one of the ingredients is styrene. We know it's a likely human carcinogen. There's a lot of problems with the manufacturing side, all the way to the washing up in coastal communities. So just like we have with all of these other sort of unnecessary plastic pollutants, we have better alternatives. They're cost effective, they're more eco-friendly, and in this case, they are actually biodegradable, compostable, recyclable, etc. So we would urge you to not pass 1480 and instead to move forward with the ban. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony to this panel as well.
5 seconds more. May I just say one thing?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
We live in a city of neighborhoods, so New York City is very different, like you pointed out, Chair, than any other city in the country, in the world. There are 400 neighborhoods, and these neighborhoods have New Yorkers who are cleaning them up, and we can't forget 400 neighborhoods, a cleaner city, Plan YC 1 NYC 2030. What are the goals of one NYC 2050, and are we getting there?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. All right. Good job. Reverend Ismael Feliciano, representing Johnny Rivera. Ooh. Manuel Caban, Smashers. Akeisha Freeman, manager at the Sugar Hill Restaurant. Ooh, watch it. There's 2 of these. Diane Sanders. I thought we already had this one. So we got more folks? Gonna get you some company. C. Shuang. Maura Smith from Vibes Restaurant. Mylin Dennerstein. All right. Got a couple of them right. I can't even. Reverend Caban or There you go. There you go. Thank you, sir. Sorry. Butchering a lot of them here. Isaac Jordan. Oh, he was just there. Sorry. Isaac, thank you. No, you're good, Isaac. Ronald Armstrong. And Uma Fabian or something like that? All right. So these are. Yes. Is there anyone else who's in favor of this project that hasn't testified, or hasn't heard their name, or signed up and hasn't testified? All right. So thank you. So you're the final three of the pro. So.
Okay, we have one more panel of folks.
Oh no, there's one more panel of the opposition. These are the last panel of support. It was an even debate. Panels on either side. All right, so go ahead.
Ladies can go first.
All right, ladies first.
Good evening. My name Oh, I'm not that. Let me press it again. Good evening. Hello. Good evening to the council. Antonio Reynoso. My name is Akeisha Freeman. I am the manager at Sugar Hill Restaurant and Supper Club in Brooklyn, New York. We have been a family-owned business and operated over 30 to 35 years now, approaching 40 closely. We are proud to be a place where in our community you can come and meet. Families have come, churches have come, organizations, and some of our elected officials from all across the cities, and some of them that were here present today and now. I'm also the president, excuse me, of the Restaurant Action Alliance, a coalition for minority entrepreneurs, restaurant owners, managers, workers who are looking to strive to help the market grow, to help us also thrive in that area. And we also look to offer resources to help others become successful. The restaurant industry is a path to success for many men and women who has especially been rewarded to Black and Latino entrepreneurs, despite the overall decline of restaurants, as stated earlier, by 6% this past year. The number of minority-owned businesses rose 40% over the last 7 years, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. That's good news for Black and Latino entrepreneurs. However, the bad news is that about half of those restaurants will close their doors silently without the fanfare of a grand opening. As you know, the restaurant and food industry contributes greatly to the economy of New York City, but it is not an easy industry. It has not been easy for my family, nor the hundreds of thousands of small business owners I'm aware of, and also that we are together in unity, who struggle with an industry that is incredibly competitive and has its ups and downs. When it comes to making the bottom line, every bit of savings helps. And this is why I'm here today to voice my strong support for Intro 1480, which will establish a program to recycle polystyrene foam, a product that we rely on heavily in our restaurant and in our general business model. In fact, about 40% of our business is takeout. We probably use every foam container product to accommodate the needs of our customers. I believe the legislation you are considering will pass on significant savings for small business owners. We buy in bulk. The cost for goods and products are the second largest expense for the restaurant industry. We know that with a recycling program established, foam distributors will be able to pass on significant savings to grocers, restaurants, and small businesses like ours. In addition, the curbside recycling program would drastically reduce our disposal costs and save restaurants like mine and owners about $60,000 per year in expenses. We need all the help we can get to survive. I'm here today to urge anyone who cares about helping small businesses, owners, and all those involved in the industry who care about helping Black and Latino entrepreneurs to support Intro 1480. I'm calling on progressive leaders like you to walk the walk and pass the bill. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you so much. My name is Mylan Dennerstein, and I'm a partner at Gibson Dunn, which is a law firm, and I am counsel to the coalition that challenged the commissioner's prior determination banning polystyrene successfully, I should say. And that coalition consists of the Restaurant Alliance. Unfortunately, it appears that Commissioner Garcia has made the same mistake again today. It makes sense to recycle. Recycling means less material will go to a landfill than under any ban, saving the city money. A ban would mean higher costs to consumers, like we just heard from, and restaurant owners. Some would even have to go out of business. Manufacturing jobs will be lost, and the alternatives will often not even be recyclable. This is a tremendous opportunity for New York City, my home, which will bear no risk. DART and PRI are paying for this because they expect to earn a return on their investment, and the price to Sims is guaranteed for 5 years. Companies just don't do that lightly. The demand for recycled polystyrene is greater than all of the polystyrene Sims would ever recover. There are companies out there like NEPCO, like MCS that you heard today that will buy this product from PRI. It is not a risk, it is a guarantee. Burtech wrote to the commissioner about all of the recycling it does just recently. So the statements that it doesn't are just not accurate, unfortunately. The commissioner has letters submitted from businesses who are willing to buy the clean product once PRI cleans it to make other items like picture frames. And frankly, it makes no sense. Just because it can't be an aluminum can doesn't mean it's not recycled. If the goal is less polystyrene, who cares if it is a picture frame? That means you are using less polystyrene in the environment. We don't want more of it. The best way to solve that problem is to recycle it. And DART and its coalition have presented a win-win solution for the city of New York that will actually reduce carbon emissions. And just one final point. There was a big deal made about how PRI is in Indianapolis. The other products will likely contain propylethylene. That's shipped to Alabama right now, which is 1,000 miles away. So what sense does that make? Recycle and recycle now.
Thank you for your testimony. Sir, you're the closer. You're like Mariano, so you got to be strong.
Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Well, I hope that you're doing a good job and don't become part of the problem, but become the solution.
Always.
Young brother.
Always.
All right. How are you today, Council? Good. My name is Dr. Cabbage Stalk. Since everyone has explained so many documentations here, I think I better follow suit. I have a bachelor's in social science, a master's in religious education, and a doctor's in ministry, and I come from the pit of the city of New York, not Fifth Avenue. I'm here today to represent Joppa Christian Ministry, which is a national ministry, South Carolina, North Carolina, New York City, Brooklyn, North, South, East, and West. This is where I go to. I just want to say that I represent a faith-based organization. Our church is international, as I said. We're dedicated to spreading the Christian fellowship and community services to families in whole communities, wherever we can reach them. I'm here today to voice the support of this 1480 because we believe this bill is a major step in the right direction for small business owners and community restaurants across our great city, for you that eat Chinese food. You know you can't put that in a napkin and walk out the Chinese restaurant. So we need to think about these bills and those other small restaurants that use this. Foam is a staple of ethnic restaurants and for small business entrepreneurs in every corner of America. These local restaurants, which are the heart of soul and neighborhoods, are places we visit for fellowship after services on Sunday. As you know, in churches, we do a lot of cooking. And what we do is we give people food to go home. So when they come back on Sunday, they feel a little better about leaving there and staying there all day that they did. So there is a long-standing tradition, as I said, in this black community, especially in the churches, in the singing and preaching and praying. I admit that sometimes the thought and smell of the food makes it a little hard for me to do what I need to do. But on the other hand, if you will, I will still serve the meals. We buy foam in bulk. We have heard the testimonies from local restaurants and community leaders about how the cost would rise drastically. No longer an option in just how much it would save us if the city establishes a recycling program such as the bill calls for. Every penny we can save goes back into the church to help to fulfill our missions of faith and service. I urge each member of the committee to do the right thing introducing this bill, this 1480. You know, one thing, and I'm going to leave this table, one thing I've understood strongly in the city of New York is that when someone introduces something or something that is right for the city of New York, it seems like we always find a way to mess it up. And we need to understand that we are not in this alone as city council representatives, the mayors. We have a whole conglomerate of people. Look at the room. So please, gentlemen, please, city council, you that are involved, take a look at the bill and know and understand how many restaurants in this, I believe, 2.3 something million people in this city of New York.
That's just Queens.
Excuse me?
8 million. Is that 2.3 is like Queens?
Well, I'm just dealing with city of New York right now. But if we want to go to Brooklyn, let's deal with Brooklyn. The majority of black individuals in the city of New York as a whole. We need to do what needs to be done, and that is the right thing. These restaurants, how are they going to do what needs to be done in serving these people their food? How would they let them take out the orders when they get ready to leave the restaurant? Do you put it in a doggy bag, a plastic bag? Do you put it on a napkin? Do you put it in a paper bag? So there are some other solutions, but maybe we have to bring that to the table. I thank you this evening. I've been here all day, being patient, and I hope this is not in vain. Thank you.
Good job. And now the last panel, but not least, yes. Ling Su, yeah. Sandra Meola, Noemi de la Puente, Alessandro Ciari, and Jenny Romer. Is Jenny here?
Yes, here are the copies.
Okay. Is there anyone else in opposition that is yet to speak or did not sign up to speak that would like to come up to the panel now? No. Well, thank you very much.
Hey.
So, now you guys.
We care.
They were like
we
the top.
stayed.
They were the top of the ninth, and now you're the bottom of the ninth. So now you gotta close it out.
We're the closer.
There you go. All right. So go ahead. You get to begin, and thank you for your patience and for being the last panel. And staying through.
Thank
the
you
end.
for your patience. I mean, as you can see, this is important to the New York City folks, and we care enough, so we stay, right?
Absolutely.
So Chairman Reynoso and City Council member, my name is Ling Zhou. I'm a co-founder of United for Action, a grassroots group in New York City working to end our addiction to fossil fuel and nuclear power and advocating for renewable energy. We oppose Intro 1480, which will classify expanded polystyrene EPS, commonly referred to as styrofoam, as recyclable. Designating EPS as recyclable would mean that New York City residents will be required to put EPS in their curbside recycling bins, and the city will be required to collect and process it. The Department of Sanitation looked into recycling these foam containers and found that they could not be recycled in an environmentally effective or economically feasible manner. EPS is brought to us from the oil well through a chemical process. It does not decompose. Animals do not recognize polystyrene foam as an artificial material and may even mistake it for food. Polystyrene foam blows in the wind and floats on water. It can have serious effects on the health of birds or marine animals that swallow significant quantities. The impact on the environment of everyday materials is increasingly important if we are to reduce our carbon footprint and protect our natural heritage for future generations. 2016 was the hottest year on record, setting a new high for the third year in a row, with human activities driving climate change. Climate change is the most critical issue of our generation, with our national administration taking us backwards in the fight against climate change. It is now even more vital that New York City step up our defense of the environment. The City Council already banned EPS foam containers in 2013. And we urge the City Council not to succumb to industry lobbying and to not pass into 1480, but to move forward with a ban on EPS foam containers. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify as I stand between all of you and your dinner. My name is Sandra Miola, and I'm testifying on behalf of New York, New Jersey Baykeeper. Baykeeper fights for clean, fishable, swimmable waterways surrounding all the lands of all 5 boroughs of New York City, as well as northern and central New Jersey. And we strongly oppose Intro 1480. Plastic is not biodegradable. It breaks up, it does not break down. We need to shift away from these single-use plastics we use for minutes but live on in our environments forever, like fossils. In 2016, Baykeeper executed a research study to quantify and classify plastic particles within New York, New Jersey harbor waters. Based on our sample collection, at least 165 million plastic particles are within New York, New Jersey harbor waters. And with the most abundant type of plastic being, you guessed it, the polystyrene foam at about 38%. Significant. Not surprisingly, since once in our waterways, polystyrene breaks up quickly into tiny pieces and is mistaken by fish for fish by food. As my colleague Judy Weiss mentioned, plastic acts as, well, contaminants already present in the waterways act as kind of hitchhikers to the plastic. So not only when fish eat these plastics are they consuming the plastic, but they're also consuming these contaminants, moving up the food chain and possibly into our own food source. The industry-backed bill is a step backwards for sustainable policy and waste management. 1480 is also an attempt by the plastic manufacturing industry to prevent a new polystyrene ban bill. Polystyrene cannot be cost-effectively recycled, although lobbyists will try to argue otherwise, as we saw today. Just to throw out a little news clip, according to the New York Times, Dart Container Corporation and the Chemistry Council spent close to $1 million to defeat a citywide ban of polystyrene back in 2013. Not one city in the United States has successfully implemented a recycling program for polystyrene. Passing this bill would be an enormous risk. We strongly urge council members to put New York City residents and our environment first over industry profits. Please vote no and instead introduce new legislation that would ban polystyrene foam packaging in line with the over 100 communities that have already done so today. Thank you.
We've already introduced the ban, so none of that happened. But
how's it going? Thank you so much for having me. I come from the Natural Resources Protection Association of Staten Island, and my name is Alessandro, and specifically what my background is finding and identifying models for us to reuse our materials instead of constantly throwing it away, to change that culture that New York has of constantly throwing things away. We have to change that, and this legislation is not going to help that. And the Natural Resources Protective Association, we reject the ill-advised legislation Intro 1480. Really, when you're looking at Staten Island, we are a victim of this insidious source of pollution from its creation, where nasty poisonous organochlorines are injected into our waterways, through its demise where it crumbles into little tiny pieces that our wildlife often mistake for food, leading to their downfall. The polystyrene pollutes our rivers, our wetlands, our forests, our streets, our landfills, degrading our collective quality of life. And the NRPA, us, we do a lot of beach cleanups, and we remove thousands of pounds of debris from our parks and beaches every year, and over 1/10 of that is styrofoam. And you asked before about why don't you take out the tires? Why don't you ban the tires? Why don't you ban the toilet bowls? You know why? It's because there are so many more healthy and sustainable materials out there to replace styrofoam with. We really don't need it. We've come far along as a society to really ban this and have much more sustainable materials. And it can, and really at the end of the day, expanded polystyrene can be replaced easily and accessibly. Now, and a final point, you also mentioned that a lot of people were saying that nobody was really saying that foam containers can be recycled if they're contaminated. Nobody specifically was saying that you can do that. Even the people supporting this bill. One person referred to the picadores, and really what he was saying was that the picadores go get the plastic bottles and recycle them. Yes, because they're plastic bottles. The picadores are not looking for contaminated styrofoam. They're not going to find any return in that. So that case made no sense. And another person, right after him in another testimony, said that this contaminated foam, they did these studies based on it. She really loosely referred to styrofoam packaging. She did not specifically say that the studies were done on styrofoam packaging. She just said it was done through food packaging in general. And really, you have to be very specific when you're talking about these studies, and she would have been if she was really being honest about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was the last testimony of the day. So you guys all get gold stars. I will say, if you come back next time, I'll keep you in the middle to the front end of the pack for testimony. You guys get that privilege. We're going to make sure we lock it in. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And, before we leave, Councilmember.
They get bonus credit. Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to thank you for really this. I've been in the council for 7 years, and this was one of the best, is not the best, hearing I ever had a part to be a part of, and to have just both sides really come out and both sides show their best. You know, and I mentioned this before. Look, at the end of the day, we both want the same thing. I think we both looking out for New York City. Is the how to that we defer, and but just in such a cordial way that it was done today. Look, I was there, like I mentioned before, a school environmental bill, plastic bag. I've been there. The microbeads that was being mentioned here, you know, as a matter of fact, I'm the one who wrote the resolution for the state level, and Don Garatnik did for the city. So I might be an enigma here for some of you, but we want the best thing, and that's for New York. And if a message that we can send out to New Yorkers, please, let's keep our streets clean, our sea clean. Let's stop throwing things into the floor. Let's develop a new culture for our environment to be clean. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. You did a fabulous, fabulous job.
Thank you for staying all the way through as well. A lot of council members don't do that, even if it's their bill. I really appreciate that. And so long as I'm the sanitation chair, I will continue to try to break culture or change culture. And I do want to make a plug-in. As soon as we make people pay for it, culture change. So there's going to come a time when I'm going to make people pay for stuff, and they're going to be very upset at me, but you're going to be standing next to me saying that's how you change culture. But thank you for everyone that's here. Thank you, New York, and thank you to the 3 overflow rooms and our Sergeant at Arms. I hope you're getting paid overtime. Really appreciate it. Have a great day, and this meeting's adjourned.